Chapter 358. The ancestral shrine suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at each other, with a puzzled expression. 3 powerful figures from the cultivation world had come down. It was still reasonable for Luo Qingtian to come here at this time. But why did Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan come here to join in the fun? Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu. Could it be that this guy had formed an irreconcilable enmity with the number 1 sect of the righteous and devil sects? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianqiu speechlessly. His idea that had been proven many times had been verified again. This kid really had problems wherever he went. Needless to say, Luo Qingtian represented the Daoyuo sect, and Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were definitely the representatives of the righteous and devil sects. Whenever the 2 sects wanted to deal with something in the cultivation world, the 2 of them would usually be the representatives. The 3 powerful figures came here when Yu Qianqiu just showed up. It would be strange if they didn't come for this guy. Yu Qianqiu, who was at the side, raised his brows and sneered without saying a word. He didn't care about the other 2. But Luo Qingtian was definitely here for him. The patriarchs of the 4 major families and the 6 elders exchanged glances and nodded, as if they had made a decision. Wu Sihai walked to Yu Qianqiu's side and said in a deep voice, "The Daoyuo sect master wants to see you. I'm afraid that Daoyuo sect's experts have already been set up around the Wu clan. It won't be easy for you to leave the Wu clan smoothly. If you nod and confirm that you are the direct disciple of the old ancestor, the 4 major families will protect you even if we have to fall out with the Daoyuo sect." "No need." Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly, and a disdainful aura suddenly burst out. He looked around and said coldly, "A mere Daoyuo sect master doesn't need to use my master's name to protect his life. Zi, let's go and meet that Luo Qingtian." His words were filled with arrogance, especially when coupled with his imposing manner. It was as if he was a completely different person. Zi had always revered Bai Changchun, not to mention that even her own master felt inferior to him. In her heart, there was no one who could be on par with Bai Changchun. Now that she heard Yu Qianqiu's words, her pretty face immediately turned frosty. How could a mere sect leader be mentioned in the same breath as Elder Bai? She immediately followed Yu Qianqiu out of the ancestral shrine. Everyone in the ancestral hall fell silent. Wu Zhen exchanged a look with the other elders inside. The 4 families were founded by our great ancestor. How can we sit back and watch our great ancestor's direct disciple get into trouble? We old guys are here to watch. You 4 represent the 4 families to protect him." The 4 clan heads accepted the order and followed out. At the same time, 10 Wu clan elders also nodded and followed. The Wu clan's residence was only separated by a river from Hat Island. Yu Qianqiu and Zi walked to the top of the arch bridge. Looking around, there were already many people gathered on the other side of the bridge to watch the show. However, there was a large empty space near the bridge with only a few people standing there. The people who stood on both sides like enemies were naturally Dongfeng Chang, Ao, and Qiu Wuyuan. Between the 2 of them, there was a person with his back facing the river bridge. He was burly and wore a black robe. Beside him stood 2 guards respectfully. Yi Haiping also stood at the side with his hands folded. Could that person be the Daoyuo sect leader, Luo Qingtian? Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes and stared at that person. "Yu Qianqiu is here," someone shouted, and the surrounding crowd immediately became restless. The person in the black robe turned around abruptly and happened to meet Yu Qianqiu's gaze from afar. At this time, the 4 clan heads behind the 2 of them led the 10 Wu clan elders to pass them and walked towards the people at the bridge. Both sides immediately exchanged greetings. "Later, if we fight, we can't let our master's reputation down," Yu Qianqiu said softly to Zi, who was beside him. He didn't forget to add, "My master always kills when he can. He won't let a single one of them go." Zi nodded with a firm gaze. Yu Qianqiu could be considered to have grasped her pulse. Everything was related to Bai Changchun, and he guaranteed that she would listen to him obediently. This girl was Bai Changchun's hardcore fan. When the 2 of them walked to the bridge, they saw Qiu Wuyuan walking towards them. He laughed loudly and said, "Brother Yu, long time no see." "Senior Qiu." Yu Qianqiu walked over and cupped his hands in greeting enthusiastically. Qiu Wuyuan saw Zi beside him and was stunned. he said. Could she be brother's confidant? No. Ziyi denied it coldly. Qiu Wuyuan wanted to make fun of them, but when he saw that Ziyi's cultivation was higher than his joke got stuck in his throat. He was just a little curious. How come he had never seen a woman with such cultivation before? Senior, why are you here? Yu Qianqiu asked. Nothing. Qiu Wuyuan turned his head and looked at Luo Qingtian and Dongfang Chang'eo with a smile. He said, First of all, I'm here to watch the show. Secondly, I heard that brother appeared in the Wu clan. So I came here to ask if brother is interested in joining my 10,000 demons? As soon as he said this, Luo Qingtian's gaze collided with Qiu Wuyuan's. The former stopped his conversation with the 4 major clans' patriarchs and walked over slowly. He looked at Yu Qianqiu and asked, You are Yu Qianqiu? Luo Qingtian was a strong old man with dark hair and 2 slanted snow-white eyebrows. His eyes were cold and steady, and he exuded the aura of a superior. Yu Qianqiu looked at him and replied indifferently, Yes, I am. May I know why Sect Master Luo wants to see me? Yu Qianqiu, do you think you can pretend to be ignorant today? Luo Qingtian shouted in a deep voice. A faint tyrannical aura was emitted from his body, and it seemed like he would make a move at any time. At this moment, the 4 patriarchs exchanged glances and walked over together. They stood behind Yu Qianqiu, and the atmosphere was self-evident. The surrounding crowd was in an uproar again. The 4 major clans were showing their attitude to stand on Yu Qianqiu's side. Didn't that mean that they were going to be enemies with the Daluo sect? Qiu Wuyuan, who was smiling silently at the side, had his eyes lit up. He chuckled and said, Interesting. He moved his feet and actually stood side by side with the 4 patriarchs. It was normal for evil Dao and righteous Dao to go against each other. Luo Qingtian ignored Qiu Wuyuan and glanced at the 4 patriarchs coldly. He said in a deep voice, Are the 4 major clans going to be enemies with the Daluo sect? We don't dare. Wu Sihai cupped his fists and said, Yu Qianqiu is a guest invited by the 4 major clans. The 4 major clans will not let anything happen to the guest in our territory. It was very clear that the 4 major clans were going to protect Yu Qianqiu today, even if it meant going against the Daluo sect. Luo Qingtian's snow-white brows pricked up, and the atmosphere instantly became tense. Dongfang Chang'eo walked over and said, China's cultivation world is in a crisis now, and it is time for us to defend against external enemies together. All the sects must not have internal strife. I will represent supporting Immortal Island to advise everyone to discuss this. Luo Qingtian turned back and took a glance before saying coldly, Could Elder Dongfang be stopping me from taking revenge for my son? Dongfang Chang'eo waved his hand and said, Sect Master Luo is mistaken. I heard that Sect Master Luo is going to visit the Wu clan personally, so I was immediately sent here. Before I came, my supporting Immortal Island's Sect Master had instructed me repeatedly that if it is a personal grudge, supporting Immortal Island will not interfere. However, if it involves a battle between sects, the impact will be too great, and my supporting Immortal Island will have to interfere. Dongfang Chang'eo, are you using supporting Immortal Island to pressure me? Do you really think that I am afraid of your supporting Immortal Island? Luo Qingtian shouted in a deep voice. Sect Master Luo, please don't misunderstand. It is just that the cultivation world is in a crisis now, and you should be clearer than me. At this moment we really should not expand our personal grudges. I hope that Sect Master Luo will reconsider. Dongfang Chang'eo persuaded. Alright. Luo Qingtian suddenly pointed at Yu Qianqiu and shouted, I will abandon my position as Sect Master and settle my personal grudge with him. Will he agree? Dongfang Chang'eo frowned slightly and looked at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu, what do you think? Before Yu Qianqiu could reply, Ziyi took a step forward with a cold expression and spoke to Luo Qingtian coldly. You are the Daluo sect master? Are you tired of living? A young woman actually dared to speak to the Daluo sect master in such a manner. Everyone was shocked, and when they realized that they couldn't see through Ziyi's cultivation, they were all speechless. Ziyi, come back. Yu Qianqiu gently pulled Ziyi's arm and said with a faint smile, Since someone pointed at my nose and challenged me to a duel, how can I retreat? Let me meet the world-renowned Daoyuo sect master. Chapter 359. As soon as he said that, the surrounding people were in an uproar. Yu Qianqiu actually agreed to fight with the Luo Qingtian, the sect master of Daoyuo sect. Did Yu Qianqiu really think that his cultivation could compete with Luo Qingtian, who was in the middle stage of passing calamity? Everyone was shocked and felt that this was a joke. They were laughing at Yu Qianqiu for overestimating himself. They were laughing at Yu Qianqiu for being a madman. Ziyi obediently retreated, and there was a faint look of excitement on her face. She had never seen Bai Changchun, whom she admired, in action, but seeing the disciple of the world's #1 expert in action was enough to satisfy her curiosity. She was looking forward to it very much. Dongfang Chang'eo frowned. Yu Qianqiu, the disciple who was expelled from supporting Xian Island, was loved and hated by everyone in supporting Xian Island. It seemed that they loved him more, because he did not do anything excessive to supporting Xian Island. He was even appreciated by the older generation of supporting Xian Island. At a young age, he made a big name for himself in the cultivation world. To be honest, the people of supporting Xian Island were proud of him, and the disciples of the younger generation even idolized him. With such a talented and outstanding disciple, he was already included in the list of disciples that the supporting Immortal Island would focus on nurturing. It was believed that in a few years, the supporting Immortal Island would have a resounding figure in the cultivation world and add glory to the island. However, because of the Azure Light sect that had already been destroyed, Yu Qianqiu, who contradicted the sect master, was expelled from the sect by Feng Xiangtian in a fit of anger. After this incident, many people in supporting Xian Island felt that it was a pity. However, in order to maintain the prestige of the sect master, no one mentioned this matter again. However, after the extermination of the Azure Light sect, Yu Qianqiu used his self-created Starflame Fire technique outside the 100 Flowers Valley to make a name for himself in the cultivation world. This matter caused a stir in the supporting Immortal Island. The entire supporting Immortal Island was talking about it. Many people began to mention Yu Qianqiu again. Some even suggested to recall Yu Qianqiu back to the supporting Immortal Island. These people's reason was that Yu Qianqiu was expelled by Ong Kwangsung. Now that Ong Kwangsung was dead, no one would pursue the past, so it was possible to recall Yu Qianqiu back to supporting Xian Island. For this matter, Ma Jigu personally went to Feng Xiangtian to plead for leniency. Ma Jigu said, "It's true that Yu Qianqiu was in the wrong, but now that Ong Kwangsung is dead, and his exposure of the father and son of the Yin clan contributed to supporting Xian Island, it can be seen that he still has supporting Xian Island in his heart. At the same time, his exposure also contributed to the entire cultivation world. This is the most suitable excuse to recall Yu Qianqiu back to supporting Xian Island." However, Feng Xiangtian was worried that Yu Qianqiu had killed the Daoyuo sect master's son and a group of disciples outside the 100 Flowers Valley. In the end, Ma Jigu said bluntly, "Many people in the cultivation world witnessed what happened. It was clearly Daoyuo sect who provoked Yu Qianqiu first. Moreover, both sides agreed not to pursue the other side's responsibility afterward. Moreover, Yu Qianqiu relied on his low cultivation and outnumbered them. Daoyuo sect has nothing to say about this. If it weren't for Yu Qianqiu being alone in the cultivation world, Daoyuo sect wouldn't have broken their promise to retaliate." Ma Jigu also said, "If Daoyuo sect really doesn't let this matter go, I will personally go to Daoyuo sect and reason with those old guys. I don't believe that Luo Qingtian can cover the sky with one hand in Daoyuo sect." After the conversation, Feng Xiangtian didn't agree because of his reputation, but Ma Jigu promised him that she would think of a way to make Yu Qianqiu's return not tarnish the sect master's reputation, so Feng Xiangtian acquiesced. However, while supporting Immortal Island was searching for Yu Qianqiu seemed to have disappeared from the cultivation world. Some people even speculated that Daoyuo sect might have secretly found Yu Qianqiu and killed him. If Daoyuo sect did this openly, they would be suspected of breaking their promise. Although most people wouldn't say it, the truth was the truth. Because of Yu Qianqiu's disappearance, This matter was almost forgotten by everyone. However, just yesterday, news suddenly came from Hat Island that Yu Qianqiu had made an appearance and was personally brought to the Wu clan by the clan leader. This news quickly spread throughout the entire Supporting Immortal Island. As a result, Supporting Immortal Island's most senior consecrator, Ma Jugu, the former sect master, Guan Dinghai, the Cultivation Pavilion's principal elder, O Sihai, the Alchemy Pavilion's principal elder, Guan Weiwu, the Myriad Fragrance Garden's principal elder, Ferdinand, and the others all went to find the sect master. At that time, Feng Xiangtian was telling Dongfang Chang'ao some things. When such a group of people suddenly came to find them, the two of them were shocked. They didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu, who had left Supporting Immortal Island for many years, would have such a great influence on the island. Feng Xiangtian didn't say anything. This was something he had tacitly agreed to in the past. Moreover, after Yu Qianqiu returned to Supporting Immortal Island, even if he didn't contribute his own mysterious fire art, it would still become a product of Supporting Immortal Island. This was also a great merit for him as the sect master. As a result, he immediately ordered Dongfang Chang'ao to carry out this matter. At the same time, Feng Xiangtian immediately thought that the Daoyuo sect might also make a move. He carefully warned Dongfang Chang'ao and told him to act according to the circumstances. Before Dongfang Chang'ao left, he asked the others, "If Yu Qianqiu doesn't want to return to Supporting Immortal Island, what should I do?" The others immediately fell silent. From the beginning to the end, it was Supporting Immortal Island's wishful thinking. They never considered Yu Qianqiu's thoughts. In their minds, Supporting Immortal Island was the #1 sect in the world. Who didn't want to attach themselves to it? How could they refuse it? However, Yu Qianqiu always did things his own way and often did things that were out of line. It wasn't like they hadn't seen it before. What if he didn't want to return? They couldn't just kidnap him. What was the point of that? After a moment of silence, Ma Jugu suddenly smiled. She seemed to have thought of a solution. The others revealed inquiring expressions. Ma Jugu smiled and said, "Back then, I could see that this boy was different from ordinary people, so I showed him some kindness. In return, he owed me a promise. I originally had another use for this promise, but now it seems that I might have to use it on him. Changgao, try to persuade him to return. If he doesn't come back, ask him if he still remembers the promise he made to me. Tell him that I want him to come to Supporting Immortal Island and fulfill the promise he made to me in the past. Since there was such a thing, it would be easy to handle." Dongfang Chang'ao received the order and rushed here overnight. However, what happened in front of him was beyond his expectation. He said those polite words to buy some time for Yu Qianqiu. As long as Yu Qianqiu agreed to return to Supporting Immortal Island, he would have a way to bring Yu Qianqiu back to Supporting Immortal Island. After all, the strength of the world's #1 sect wasn't just for show. Once Yu Qianqiu went to Supporting Immortal Island and confirmed his identity as a disciple of Supporting Immortal Island, Ma Jugu, who had made a guarantee, would naturally come forward to deal with the following matters. Presumably, she would have a way to restrict Luo Qingtian. But who knew that when Luo Qingtian issued a challenge, Yu Qianqiu actually agreed to it without any hesitation. Dongfang Chang'ao was suffering in silence. He had just said in the name of Supporting Immortal Island that he wouldn't intervene in their personal grievances. He couldn't slap Supporting Immortal Island's face in front of so many people, right? But if he didn't intervene, how was he going to explain to the people in his sect when he returned? Now that things had come to this, he could only choose an opportunity to act. Dongfang Chang'ao stepped back speechlessly. Qiu Wuyuan smacked his lips and really didn't know what to say. In fact, he was also appointed by the 10,000 demons to deal with Yu Qianqiu, but his idea was quite different from that of Supporting Immortal Island. They were interested in Yu Qianqiu's mysterious fire art that could kill people of a higher level. As long as they recruited Yu Qianqiu into the 10,000 demons, there was no need to worry that they wouldn't be able to get something out of him. However, as Dongfang Chang'ao said, now was the time for internal strife when there were foreign enemies invading. What's more, in order to deal with the foreign enemies, the orthodox and devil sects of the entire cultivation world had put aside their prejudices and temporarily formed an alliance. Now the Cultivation Alliance was not only made up of the Orthodox sects, but also the devil sections. The current situation was that no matter how much hatred they had in the past, they had to let it all go now. Anything else could wait until the foreign enemies were defeated. At that time, no matter what they wanted to do, they wouldn't violate the taboo of the Chinese cultivation world. In secular terms, it was the national righteousness. This was something that no one could afford to offend, regardless of whether it was the Orthodox or the devil. Luo Qingtian first provoked the four major families in the name of the Daluo sect. Under the current situation in the cultivation world, it was definitely related to violating the taboo of everyone. Qiu Wuyuan immediately stood on the side of the four major families without hesitation and took the opportunity to support Yu Qianqiu, who knew that once Dongfang Chang'ao intervened, the little lunatic Yu Qianqiu actually gave up the protection of the four major families and wanted to fight one-on-one with Luo Qingtian. Did he really think that Luo Qingtian was as easy to scare as Zhu Xianxian? Wasn't he courting death? In this way, not to mention Dongfang Chang'ao, even Qiu Wuyuan couldn't intervene anymore. The masters of other sects all followed the rules, so there was no reason for him, Qiu Wuyuan, to intervene at this time. Chapter 360. Brother Yu, you have to think it through, Qiu Wuyuan said reluctantly, but he kept signaling the four family heads with his eyes. The four family heads, who were stunned, immediately came to their senses and said in unison, "No." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said indifferently, "It's nothing. The grudge between me and Daluo sect will come to an end sooner or later. Today is just the beginning. If the four family heads really agree with my identity, then don't stop me and step back." Ziyi. Hearing the call, Ziyi immediately understood Yu Qianqiu's intention. Her delicate body stood between him and the four family heads, her pretty face expressionless. "Yu Qianqiu, if something happens to you, how are we going to explain it to the elders? How are we going to?" Wu Sihai was a little anxious and almost said the great ancestor. Although he didn't say it out loud, the eyes of the people around him flickered. They were all secretly guessing just what kind of identity did Yu Qianqiu have for the four great clans to be willing to fall out with the Daluo sect just to protect him. Luo Qingtian was stunned for a while. He said those words out of anger. He didn't expect Yu Qianqiu to really agree. It was really surprising. At this moment, he came back to his senses and glanced at the four family heads coldly. He snorted and said, "Although the Chinese cultivation world is being eyed by foreign enemies, if you four family heads provoke Daluo sect first, then don't blame us for not following the rules." He waved to the surrounding crowd and said, "My friends from the cultivation world, please bear witness." The surrounding cultivators immediately responded in unison. Luo Qingtian's status in the cultivation world was quite high. It was difficult for ordinary cultivators to even see him. Now they actually got to see him fight. Moreover, his opponent was the scum of the cultivation world, Yu Qianqiu. It was really a show to watch. As for Yu Qianqiu's twisted name, no one knew if he had done something shameless, or if someone was jealous of his reputation. No one knew when it started to spread. In any case, even if it didn't fit the facts, everyone still called him that. The four great clan heads frowned deeply as they exchanged glances. They were still hesitant. Yu Qianqiu stared at Luo Qingtian and said faintly, "This is a personal matter between me and the Daluo sect. It has nothing to do with the four major families. Ziyi, please step aside." Ziyi stared at the four of them expressionlessly. Since it had come to this, the four of them had nothing to say. They shook their heads helplessly and moved to the side. Wu Sihai gave a few instructions to a Wu clan elder, and that elder quickly returned to the Wu clan. He was probably going back to report. The fight was about to begin. Those who were too close didn't want to be affected, but they also didn't want to miss the excitement, so they all squeezed to the back. After all, Luo Qingtian's cultivation was profound, and he might be provoked by the aftershock of the fight. Moreover, Yu Qianqiu's starflame fire technique wasn't easy to deal with. However, everyone didn't want to retreat too far away, so that they couldn't see clearly. So many people simply flew to the roof to watch. The huge area was quickly emptied to the two of them. Only Dongfang Chang'ao and a few others who were confident in their cultivation and weren't afraid of being affected didn't retreat too far. Yu Qianqiu and Luo Qingtian looked at each other, and a storm was brewing. After waiting for a while, Luo Qingtian's eyes actually showed a hint of appreciation to Yu Qianqiu. He couldn't see any panic or fear from Yu Qianqiu. Among the younger generation, there were very few people who dared to face him like this. Just this courage alone was not something ordinary people could compare with. He didn't know that ever since Yu Qianqiu followed by Changchun, his vision was no longer the same as before. After staying with people at Bai Changchun's level for a long time, he didn't even care about the Demon King and the Ghost King, who were equivalent to the final stage of the passing calamity stage. How could he take a middle stage of the passing calamity stage seriously, let alone be afraid of him? At this moment, Luo Qingtian suddenly said, "Yu Qianqiu, you really live up to your reputation. You are a courageous person, but I don't understand. Why do you repeatedly go against my Daluo sect, and even kill my only son?" Sect leader Luo must have made a mistake. It's not that I, Yu Qianqiu, repeatedly go against your Daluo sect. It's that your Daluo sect has repeatedly bullied others because of your great power. Yu Qianqiu replied coldly. Luo Qingtian raised his white eyebrows and said rather conceitedly, "I am confident that I have strict restrictions on my disciples. How can you say that I am bullying others?" Strict restrictions? What a joke! Yu Qianqiu sneered. "When I first entered the cultivation world, my master Ong Kuang Sung happened to obtain a spiritual herb called the rainbow lingji mushroom. Unfortunately, he ran into someone from your Daluo sect. In the end, not only did your disciple snatch the spiritual herb, but he also didn't let his master go. Once my master died, I ended up wandering around. Is this what you mean by strict restrictions? Secondly, you did not teach your son well, and allowed him to cause trouble. Your son Luo Xiaohan actually forced Yu Qianqiu's woman to drink with him in public. Do you think I should teach him a lesson? How can you say that I am going against your Daluo sect? In the 100 Flowers Valley, your son repeatedly provoked me and forced me to fight him. That's why I killed him. Do you want me to let him kill me? I'm not making things up. Many people have seen it with their own eyes. Why is it that you, sect leader Luo, say that I am going against your Daluo sect time and time again? If I ran into one incident, it could be said that it was a coincidence. But I ran into them one after another. Could it be that the Daluo sect is as strict as sect master Luo said? When it came to reasoning, Yu Qianqiu's mouth had never been afraid of anyone. As soon as he opened his mouth, he listed out the exalted sect's crimes in front of everyone in the cultivation world. It was as if he had been persecuted by the exalted sect. When Zi looked at Yu Qianqiu, her beautiful lips moved. She thought to herself, "It turns out that master doesn't know everything. Maybe there are other secrets to the other incidents." Hearing this, Luo Qingtian's white eyebrows trembled slightly. He turned around to look at Yi Haiping and the other Daluo sect disciples with a sharp gaze. Those people's eyes were dodging his gaze in fear. It seemed that there were secrets in what Yu Qianqiu said that even Luo Qingtian, the sect leader, didn't know. It's meaningless to say more. I will avenge my son's death. Luo Qingtian turned around and said after a pause, "In order to prevent people from saying that I'm a bully, I'll let you have 3 moves first. If you can withstand 100 moves from me and stay alive, I promise that the grudge between you and Daluo sect will be written off. Daluo sect, and I will not cause any trouble for you in the future. Do you think that's fair?" Dongfang Changgao and Qiu Wuyuan's eyebrows twitched. In their opinion, although it was almost impossible for Yu Qianqiu to last more than 100 moves against Luo Qingtian had more or less given Yu Qianqiu a way out. It was not certain that Yu Qianqiu would not stop until he was dead. It seemed like Yu Qianqiu's words were effective. The crowd began to discuss among themselves. Even if you don't cause trouble for me, I'll still cause trouble for Daluo sect sooner or later. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. Since it's to end the grudge, there's no such thing as fairness or unfairness. I, Yu Qianqiu, will not appreciate sect leader Luo's kindness. You make the first move. After 3 moves, I won't show mercy. Luo Qingtian's white eyebrows relaxed and he said loudly, Let me experience Yu Qianqiu's starflame fire technique. I won't let you down. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He turned around and walked toward the bridge. As he walked, he said, "It's better for us to end our grudge on this 100-meter-long river, lest the shops nearby suffer." The river was 100 meters wide, and the bridge was also 100 meters long. The water flowed slowly under the bridge. Just as Yu Qianqiu walked to the center of the arch bridge, he suddenly heard the sound of wind breaking. He quickly turned around and saw Luo Qingtian shooting over like a phantom. In an instant, he stood 2 to 3 meters away. Yu Qianqiu was slightly surprised. What a fast speed! It was almost as fast as teleportation. His sharp eyes under his white eyebrows were overflowing with battle intent. Luo Qingtian said in a deep voice, "Let's do it." The surrounding gazes immediately focused on the bridge. Many people saw the two of them on the bridge, so they crowded to the bridgehead to watch. Yu Qianqiu didn't hold back. He swung his sleeves toward the sky, and hundreds of green flying swords shot out from his sleeves. They circled around him. Luo Qingtian's eyes flashed. What a strange flying sword. What a beautiful sword technique. Before he finished speaking, dozens of flying swords turned into green lights and shot over at lightning speed. Luo Qingtian shouted, "One move!" He turned into a shadow and flew up from the bridge, barely avoiding the flying sword that was shot at him. Yu Qianqiu made a hand seal, and the flying swords quickly turned back. They merged with all the other flying swords and shot into the sky, chasing after Luo Qingtian. A shout came from the sky. 2 moves! Luo Qingtian, who was soaring up, suddenly changed his direction and shot out horizontally. A group of green shadows brushed past him. The onlookers exclaimed. While flying at such a high speed, he didn't stop and suddenly changed his direction. Moreover, he didn't slow down at all. He really deserved to be the famous Daoyuo sect leader. His cultivation was indeed extraordinary. Even Qiu Weiyuan couldn't help but praise. Luo Qingtian, you're really good. Damn it. Even the flying swords couldn't catch up with him. This old guy's speed was too abnormal. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes. They were both in the middle stage of tribulation passing. But the difference between He Li and Luo Qingtian wasn't just a little bit. At least He Li didn't have this ability. He made a hand seal, and the hundreds of flying swords in the sky turned into pillars. Like flying dragons in the sky, they chased after Luo Qingtian. 3 moves! Luo Qingtian shouted in the sky, and his body suddenly fell down. He dodged the flying swords as fast as a meteor, and shot towards Yu Qianqiu in the middle of the bridge. 3 moves were over, and it was time for Luo Qingtian to make his move. The onlookers below immediately worried for Yu Qianqiu. As the figure whistled over, Yu Qianqiu opened his arms. Green flames suddenly burst out, and instantly spread to both ends of the bridge. The sudden high temperature almost instantly turned the 100-meter-long bridge into ashes. The 2 onlookers who were closer to the bridge were shocked on the spot, and they quickly escaped from the bridgehead. The horrifying high temperature was simply terrifying. 2 green flames flashed in Yu Qianqiu's eyes. He raised his head and slapped his palm towards Luo Qingtian. A thick green fire dragon welcomed the oncoming person. Luo Qingtian, who was attacking downwards, was also shocked. He had never seen green flames before. Before he arrived, he could already feel the soul-stirring high temperature. A white protective upstanding qi burst out from his body in an instant, enveloping his whole body as he dove straight into the green flames that were coming at him. The onlookers below were dumbfounded as they waited for the result. Who knew that Luo Qingtian, who had just rushed into the green flames, would turn around and fly back in the blink of an eye? He flew directly into the sky. Zi, who was below, suddenly smiled sweetly. She thought to herself, this person definitely doesn't know how powerful Yu Qianqiu's green flames are. I'm sure he'll suffer a loss. Even I, who has the cultivation of the late stage of tribulation passing, can't bear it. How can a mere middle stage of tribulation passing be able to bear it? Chapter 361. As soon as Luo Qingtian flew into the air, he immediately felt that something was wrong. When he heard a group of sharp whistles above his head, he immediately thought of the group of flying swords in the air, and looked up. The green flying swords originally stopped in the air. At this time, The green shadows poured down and finally seized the opportunity to vent their shame. They shot toward Luo Qingtian, who was in the protective aura like a storm. Such a thrilling attack scene made a lot of people below worry for Luo Qingtian. With the protective aura on his body, he definitely couldn't escape as fast as before. Bang! Luo Qingtian's shout suddenly sounded in the air, followed by a loud bang in the air, like a thunderbolt. The white stellar energy on his body suddenly exploded, and the hundreds of green flying swords that were hurtling towards him were instantly blown into pieces and scattered everywhere. Self-destructing the protective aura. The people watching the battle below were in a commotion. Everyone couldn't understand. Could it be that Luo Qingtian's protective aura couldn't block the attack of Yu Qianzhou's flying swords? He had to use a method that consumed a lot of qi, self-destructing the protective aura. They didn't know that Luo Qingtian arrogantly thought that his protective aura could withstand Yu Qianzhou's green fire. Who knew that when he rushed into the sea of fire, he found that it was not what he thought. The temperature of the green fire was so high that it almost broke his protective aura on the spot. He was immediately shocked. With such a terrifying flame, he was afraid that once his protective aura was broken, his body would definitely suffer a disaster. Fortunately, his reaction was very fast. When he felt that something was wrong, he immediately flew back. But even so, the high temperature attached to the protective aura was difficult to disperse. With such a high temperature protective aura, he didn't dare to withdraw it back into his body at this time. He could only wait for it to slowly cool down, but it was so hot that he trembled slightly. Fortunately, the people below couldn't see it while he was flying. At this time, Yu Qianzhou's flying swords attacked. Luo Qingtian, who was suffering in the steamer, simply clenched his teeth and self-destructed the protective aura. He took the opportunity to resist the flying swords to relieve his pain. But the protective aura was formed by condensing a lot of qi. This explosion really lost a lot of qi. Damn it! He blew it up first. Yu Qianzhou was a little gloomy. Initially, he wanted to wait for the green flame flying swords to come a little closer. Then he would immediately explode these 100 flying swords into a sea of green flames that filled the sky. At that time, no matter how high this old fellow's cultivation was, even if he couldn't kill Yu Qianzhou, he would still be able to burn Yu Qianzhou into a mess. Then Yu Qianzhou would have the upper hand. That was because the Deluo sect master was truly extraordinary. Even the flying sword could not catch up to him. So how were they supposed to fight? He could only resort to trickery. Unexpectedly, Boss Yu also miscalculated. Luo Qingtian actually detonated his protective upstanding qi one step ahead of him and blew up all the flying swords. His plan was immediately ruined. In fact, Yu Qianzhou didn't know that the reason why Luo Qingtian did that was because of his green fire. The opportunity was fleeting. Without the burden of the aura shield, the flying sword would definitely not be able to catch up with Luo Qingtian. The scattered azure flying swords quickly returned from the sky and circled around Yu Qianzhou again. Luo Qingtian also stood in the air and did not move for the time being. He stared at the scene below with a gloomy expression, and his mind was still thinking about the ferocity of the green fire. He didn't expect that after he let Yi Futian make 3 moves, he would suffer a loss and lose face. The bridge was destroyed, and Yu Qianzhou immediately landed on the water surface. He stood on the waves, not sinking or moving. He squinted his eyes and looked up at the sky. A raging green flame wrapped around his body, rendering the river's surface rippling. He floated on the water surface and faced the Deluo sect master, Luo Qingtian, who was famous all over the world. The green fire man on the water surface was like a bright green pearl, shining brightly. The sudden occurrence of such a strange event confused most of the people present. However, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other at the same time, and there was a hint of shock in their eyes. The two of them could see that Luo Qingtian and Yu Qianzhou had only exchanged 1 or 2 moves, and the former seemed to have suffered a loss. How was this possible? The 4 family masters were also at the tribulation stage, so they naturally saw the clues. They looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. The direct disciple of the ancestor was indeed extraordinary. No wonder he had the confidence to challenge the Deluo sect master alone. This is the starflame fire technique? Luo Qingtian's voice came from the sky. Yes. Yu Qianqiu replied firmly and proudly. Do you dare to come up and fight? Luo Qingtian's voice came again. Yu Qianqiu, who was in the blue fire, shook his head and said loudly, Sect Master Luo, you think too highly of me, Yu Qianqiu. Whether it is cultivation or speed, I am far inferior to you. If I come up to the sky, I will only be beaten. It is better for me to stay on the ground and deal with the changes. Luo Qingtian was silent for a while. Then he nodded and said, Again. Then he swooped down and shouted, De Luo Mountain Splitting Palm. A gust of wind blew in the sky. As Luo Qingtian swooped down and struck with his palm, a huge shadow of a palm with a radius of tens of meters appeared in the sky and covered the river. Before the shadow of the palm arrived, Yu Qianqiu immediately felt a strong pressure. The entire river was slightly dented. Even if he released the blue fire to resist, it would be forced away by such a strong pressure. It couldn't hurt Luo Qingtian at all. He squinted his eyes, and the flying sword that was circling around his body rushed into the blue fire. Along with the blue fire, it quickly disappeared without a trace. The river under his feet suddenly split open. Yu Qianqiu suddenly dove into the water and disappeared instantly. The pressure and momentum descended at the same time. The huge shadow of the palm then hit the water, where Yu Qianqiu was standing just now. With a loud bang, a huge wave exploded in the river, accompanied by a strong airflow that spread in all directions. Many people who were watching the battle at the side quickly escaped, but there were also many people whose cultivation was too low. They couldn't escape in time, and were suddenly washed away by the sudden flood. This was the price of watching a show. Many shops near the river were immediately destroyed. When the water passed, there were fish jumping everywhere on the ground. Of course, cultivators like Dongfang Zhangao immediately released their protective upstanding qi, which acted like a pillar in the middle of a raging river, withstanding the sudden attack of the flood. Luo Qingtian stopped at a low altitude. His sharp eyes under his white eyebrows were like torches, and he quickly looked down. The power of his palm instantly made a section of the river dozens of meters deep to see the bottom, and then the water violently converged and flowed again. This moment was enough for him to see the situation below clearly, but there was no Yu Qianqiu under the water. No one knew where he was hiding. After waiting for a while, Yu Qianqiu still didn't come out. Several people who stayed on the shore suddenly showed some suspicious expressions. Yu Qianqiu chose to fight in the river. Could it be that he was good at swimming and had already prepared to escape? Only Ziyi looked at the river calmly. She didn't believe that Elder Bai's disciple would be so useless that he would run away in fear before suffering a loss. Luo Qingtian, who was low in the air, seemed to be impatient. He suddenly descended and stepped on the water. He released his divine sense and went deep into the river to check around. His action of descending to the river was probably to lure Yu Qianqiu out. In fact, when Yu Qianqiu saw the incoming palm, he knew that he couldn't resist it with his cultivation. So he simply dived into the river and used the water spell to quickly escape far away to avoid the disaster. This was why he chose to fight on the river. With this big river as his backing, he, who had cultivated the water arts, could quickly escape in the water at any time. This was a method he had comprehended in the 1,000-mile lake. Who could be faster than him in the water? It was truly one of the best methods for escaping for his life. But escaping was escaping, not escaping. After the power of the palm, he quickly escaped back. Luo Qingtian's divine sense went back and forth on him a few times, but he couldn't find him. It could be seen that the mystery of the water spell had already made him one with the river water. It would be difficult for Luo Qingtian to find him with his current cultivation. The people on the river continued to look for him. Yu Qianqiu, who was under the river, was frowning and thinking. It was too dangerous to go out and fight, and it was too dangerous to escape. If he was beaten as soon as he showed up, how could he survive in the cultivation world in the future? Suddenly he frowned and his eyes lit up. He remembered what Healy said. Healy said that the black fire could burn people's mind and destroy their divine sense. Why not give it a try? Luo Qingtian's divine sense swept back and forth at the bottom of the river. He didn't even let go of the corners of the river. fearing that Yu Qianqiu was hiding somewhere. Yu Qianqiu quietly stretched out 2 fingers, and a black light the size of an egg appeared on his fingertips. He pointed at the divine sense that was sweeping over. On the shore, the scattered people gradually approached again. Most of them suspected that Yu Qianqiu had escaped. After a long time, even Ziyi started to lose confidence. However, at that moment Luo Qingtian, who was standing on the surface of the water, suddenly raised his head and let out a painful groan. He staggered on the surface of the water and lost control of himself. Half of his body sank into the water. Seeing that the black fire could really hurt people's divine sense, Yu Qianqiu, who was under the water, was overjoyed. He took advantage of the moment when Luo Qingtian was absent-minded, and once again seized the opportunity to attack without hesitation. Suddenly, there was a shocking change on the surface of the river. The water surface set off a wave of air, and the river water quickly spiraled up, completely engulfing Luo Qingtian. A water dragon that was dozens of meters wide and nearly 100 meters long instantly formed on the surface of the river. Just as everyone was shocked, the huge water dragon suddenly refracted the dazzling sunlight and looked crystal clear. It stood in the river and instantly stopped moving. "Ah, it's frozen," many people exclaimed. After everyone reacted, they found that the water dragon really froze into ice in an instant, and it was showing a dense chill under the sun. "Ah, the river is also frozen," exclamations sounded again. Everyone looked together and saw that the river, which was 100 meters wide and 200 to 300 meters long, was full of white frost, and the chill was against the ice dragon. "Ah, look, Yu Qianqiu is up there," one person screamed and pointed. Everyone looked over and saw Yu Qianqiu standing proudly on the top of the 100 meters high ice dragon with his hands behind his back. The sunlight refracted from the top of the dragon, and he looked quite imposing. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan were shocked. It was incredible that someone could instantly cast a spell to form such a large piece of ice. The masters of the 4 major families, as well as the 6 elders floating in the air across the river, all looked at Yu Qianqiu and secretly thought that he was indeed the disciple of the great ancestor. Ziyi's eyes lit up. Senior Bai's disciple did not let her down. Those who knew who Yu Qianqiu's master thought that such a mysterious spell must have been taught by Bai Changchun. But they didn't know that it was created by Yu Qianqiu. Of course, Bai Changchun's guidance was also indispensable. Sect leader. A group of Daluo sect disciples cried out in sorrow and rushed under the ice throne. At this moment, Luo Qingtian's voice suddenly spread from under the ice throne, and he shouted, "Get out of my way! This is a personal grudge between me and Yu Qianqiu. How can a mere ice trap me?" Chapter 362. Several figures stopped upon hearing the voice and stayed on the ice surface. Luo Qingtian's voice came from the ice again. "Step back." The Daluo sect disciples didn't dare to hesitate anymore and quickly returned to the shore. Yu Qianqiu looked at the ice throne below from the top of the ice dragon. He knew that it was difficult to trap an expert with such cultivation, but he could step on the Daluo sect leader today. Even if he lost later, it would be a glorious defeat. The eyes of the spectators on both sides of the river were also focused on the place where Luo Qingtian was trapped. "Ah!" A dull sound came from below the ice dragon, followed by a creaking sound. Cracks began to appear on the ice throne below, destroying the beauty of the entire ice dragon. The cracks began to spread to the body of the ice dragon. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the entire ice surface and both sides of the river trembled. The base of the ice dragon exploded instantly, and a figure shot out from below. The power of this explosion was extremely great. In order to escape, Luo Qingtian resisted the heavy pressure and used all his cultivation to make the explosion. The power could be imagined. Huge ice pieces shot out in all directions, and the onlookers on both sides of the river suddenly scattered. Those with low cultivation were already scared to the point that their faces turned pale. Under such power, not to mention the people, even the houses on both sides would be destroyed in an instant. At this moment, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan tacitly flashed and stood by the riverside. At the same time, They pushed out their palms with great cultivation. A strong airflow rolled out and instantly pushed countless huge ice pieces to the river surface, saving many people and shops here. After this action, the two of them looked at each other. It was not that they really had a tacit understanding, but on this Hat Island, there were two shops and disciples at the same time, so they naturally had to protect them. On the other side of the river, the Wu family would take action. The surface of the frozen river was full of holes because of the exploding ice cubes. Under the ice throne, there was an ice pit at the place where Luo Qingtian escaped. After the huge ice dragon lost its base, it was about to collapse. Who knew that the bottom of the ice dragon just happened to correspond to the ice pit and was stuck there? Surprisingly, it was still standing on the ice river. However, the ice dragon was already shorter, and its body was covered in cracks. It could collapse at any time. Luo Qingtian stood on the ice surface dozens of meters away and looked up. His white eyebrows trembled as he laughed wildly. What a great Yu Qianqiu! You really live up to your reputation. How many years has it been since I took over the exalted immortal sect? This is the first time someone has forced me into such a sorry state. This old man has finally seen the world today. My son dying in your hands is not an injustice. Haha. It had been a long time since he had a free fight. Who would have thought that he would be able to have a good fight with a junior today? Yu Qianqiu, do you still dare to fight? The voice spread out in all directions. There's something wrong with this old thing's brain. He's speaking incoherently. You're the one at a disadvantage. I should be the one asking this question. Yu Qianqiu stood on the shorter ice dragon and spat out two words in a sonorous voice. I'll accompany you. As the saying goes, the livelier a place is, the more attractive it is. Once you look, there will be something interesting to watch, and the people who have dispersed will return to the shore without fear of death. Sword, come. Luo Qingtian stretched out his hand towards the shore and shouted. The guard who was carrying his sword on the shore immediately held the sword with both hands. Luo Qingtian formed a claw with his hand, and with a clang, the sword was unsheathed and quickly shot into his hand. Qiu Wuyuan glanced at Dongfang Chang, Ao beside him, and said, The sword of the exalted immortal sect masters is a high-grade offensive Dharma treasure. If Luo Qingtian pulls out the sword, I'm afraid Yu Qianqiu will be in danger. Dongfang Chang, Ao looked straight ahead and said, You and Yu Qianqiu call each other brothers. If you help, I promise I won't say anything. Although one of them was a righteous, and the other a demonic, they often met on different occasions, and did not get along well with each other. Qiu Wuyuan rolled his eyes and stopped talking. He was too lazy to find trouble for himself. Luo Qingtian's sharp eyes under his white eyebrows glanced at the clear sword body with pity. Instantly, he became full of battle intent and laughed loudly. I thought it was enough to deal with a junior empty-handed. I didn't expect you, Yu Qianqiu, to have cultivated such a mysterious spell that you can actually force me to pull out this sword. The ice dragon under Yu Qianqiu's feet was not evenly distributed, and there were more and more cracks. It could fall at any time, but Luo Qingtian always had endless things to say. Yu Qianqiu said angrily, Old man, you talk too much nonsense. Are you going to fight or not? If not, I'm going back to sleep. Luo Qingtian was speechless and stunned. This was the first time someone dared to talk to him, the exalted immortal sect master, like this. Despite Luo Qingtian's noble status, many people in the crowd couldn't help but laugh out loud. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other with a strange expression. The four family heads of the four major families were full of admiration. On Ziyi's pretty face, there was already a sweet smile. She was looking at the man on top of the ice dragon with admiration. Luo Qingtian was immediately angered by this sentence. He shouted, Ignorant junior, how dare you? The long sword in his hand slashed out a sword energy. As the sword edge slashed out, it formed a crescent silver-white cold light and shot out quickly. Bang! Ice shards splashed everywhere. The sword energy directly cut the ice dragon in half, and the upper half fell down. Yu Qianqiu waved his sleeves and threw out a green flying sword. He flipped over and jumped up from the ice dragon, landing on the flying sword. As soon as his feet landed, there was a whistling sound, and a sharp sword energy rushed towards him. At the same time, the ice dragon that was cut in half finally collapsed. Yu Qianqiu rode his sword and dodged quickly. The sword energy brushed past him, stirring up a strong wind, and flew into the sky. Luo Qingtian's face was gloomy. The sword in his hand slashed dozens of times, and the sword energy immediately formed a sword net that covered the sky. The people who were worried about Yu Qianqiu changed their expressions. Ziyi had a piece of purple-black bamboo in her hand. She was ready to teleport to help at any time. Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes. The distance was too close, and it was too difficult to get through the gaps in the sword net. Moreover, the sword net was too wide. With his speed, it would be equally difficult to escape. He thought for a moment, then turned around and rode his sword straight into the sky. The sword energy that formed a net chased after him. In the blink of an eye, after a few hundred meters, Yu Qianqiu flew backward and successfully passed through the expanding sword energy net. How could he always be suppressed by others and not fight back? If he didn't make a name for himself today, then when would he? Fight. Yu Qianqiu's eyes were cold. He shouted, "Hi!" and opened his arms, as if he was summoning something between heaven and earth. The group of people below was glad that he was out of danger. When they saw him doing this again, they were wondering what he was going to do. Suddenly their expressions changed. In an instant the sky darkened. The water rippled in the sky, and the range was a few hundred meters. It was right above Yu Qianqiu's head. Yu Qianqiu opened his arms and stared down fiercely. "Ah! What is going on?" There was a cry of surprise from below. A lake actually appeared in the sky out of nowhere. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other and said in surprise, "Water spell." Ziyi's eyes sparkled. She felt that it was a worthwhile trip to see such a mysterious spell. The people from the 4 major families all opened their mouths and looked at the sky in disbelief. "Hi!" Yu Qianqiu shouted again. He raised his arms in the air and turned. A large area of water in the air gradually rotated. It rotated faster and faster, like a tornado in the air. The momentum was really amazing. Now he finally understood what his master had said. He could control the source of heaven and earth, so it was indeed easier for him to use some techniques. Otherwise, with his own cultivation, he would not be able to withstand such a large pool of water in the air, let alone control it. Luo Qingtian looked at the sky, and his pupils shrank. He also didn't understand what Yu Qianqiu was going to do. He couldn't drown himself with a pool of water, right? "Go!" Yu Qianqiu pointed his finger at Luo Qingtian below. The water whirlwind above his head immediately shot out water arrows. When they passed by Yu Qianqiu, they immediately turned into ice thorns with cold light, whistling down. "Oh my God! What kind of spell is this?" Someone below exclaimed. Dozens of ice thorns flew over rapidly. Luo Qingtian did not care about these things. He was afraid that Yu Qianqiu had made such a big commotion, so he should not only have these tricks up his sleeves. He dodged it immediately. Tut tut tut. Dozens of ice thorns pierced deep into the ice, and some of them were smashed into pieces. However, what followed was not just dozens of ice thorns, but hundreds of them. Luo Qingtian shouted, "Is this all you've got?" He didn't dodge anymore. The long sword in his hand stirred up sharp sword chi in the air. In an instant, ice chips flew everywhere, and they were reflected by the sunlight into a colorful and dazzling scene. Yu Qianqiu seemed to be addicted to it. The ice thorns flew wildly, as if he wouldn't be satisfied until he squandered the pool of water above his head. Indeed, no matter how much water there was, it couldn't be squandered like this. Everyone didn't understand why he was doing such a useless thing. He really couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtian. Looking around, the sky above the river was shrouded by the enchanting colors of the ice dust and sunlight, and the sound of the sword chi breaking the ice was endless. The water in the sky was exhausted, and with the last wave of ice thorns, hundreds of green flying swords suddenly appeared around Yu Qianqiu, protecting him as he rotated like a cone. He carried the flying swords and followed the last wave of ice thorns, shooting towards Luo Qingtian below. Everyone immediately realized that the previous big movement was just a cover-up. It seemed that the final killer move was still on this weird flying sword. The Daluo sect disciples were afraid that the sect leader would be blinded by the ice dust and suffer losses. One of them exclaimed, "Be careful, sect leader, it's a trap." As soon as he said that, Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan glared at that person, and that person immediately shut up. Luo Qingtian was alert when he heard that. He vaguely saw a green shadow shooting towards him from the sky, and immediately thought of the terrifying green fire. He kept his long sword and quickly dodged. But it seemed a little late. "I didn't manage to blow you up last time, so I have to let you have a taste of it this time." Yu Qianqiu smiled sinisterly and rushed into the ice dust with the flying sword. Bang, bang, bang. The green fire flying sword immediately exploded into a sea of green fire. The green fire spread, and the ice dust on the river immediately dissipated. Luo Qingtian's speed was really fast. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the sea of green fire and flashed into the air. However, his appearance had changed drastically. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in rags. His coat was burnt, his shoes and trousers were gone, and the few rags on his body were also burnt black. His hair was burnt short, especially that pair of beautiful white eyebrows. It was such a pity. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu did not intend to harm the innocent. There were still many people on both sides of the river, watching against the high temperature. However, Luo Qingtian's appearance in the air almost made everyone's jaws drop. Was this still the Daluo sect leader with an extraordinary aura? "Yu Qianqiu, how dare you trick me?" Luo Qingtian shouted furiously in the air. "F***CK. You still managed to escape like this?" Yu Qianqiu looked at the sky in shock. Fortunately, he still had a backup plan, so there was still a way out. The sea of fire quickly converged into his body. Without saying anything, he turned around and dove into the melted river. This was his backup plan to save his life. He did not understand why Luo Qingtian could escape from the sea of fire unscathed. It was because he did not hear it when he dove down. If Luo Qingtian was not reminded by his disciples, he would have suffered a great loss. Chapter 363. After Yu Qianqiu went into the water for a few meters, he knew that he was in trouble and immediately fled in panic. Although the power of the green fire was great, the time it appeared was too short. Only the top few meters of the frozen river had melted, and the bottom was still solid ice. It could only be blamed that the environment of this era was too good. There was no pollution, and the water was as clean as anything. It could be seen clearly at the depth of a few meters. In addition, with the ice at the bottom of the water as a foil, every move of Yu Qianqiu underwater was seen by Luo Qingtian, who was above. This made Luo Qingtian feel strange. Why was he able to see that brat without using his divine sense? Luo Qingtian was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. He chuckled and chased after Yu Qianqiu in his ragged clothes. He quickly blocked Yu Qianqiu's path and held his sword high with both hands. The sword in his hand turned into a huge sword shadow and fiercely slashed toward the river. Bang! There was a loud sound. The river was slashed by a white chain, and a water curtain that was hundreds of meters long and tens of meters high exploded. The people on the shore couldn't see the situation at the bottom of the river because of the different angle. When they saw Luo Qingtian's crazy action, they were all confused. The sound transmission effect in the water was not bad. It made Yu Qianqiu dizzy. The huge undercurrent that surged from the bottom of the river immediately rolled him back. He didn't think much and retreated more than 10 meters. His body lit up with green fire, and he directly turned into ice and drilled into the layer of ice. Luo Qingtian chased after him again, and was stunned again. There was a green lantern-like ball of light in the layer of ice below. It was really eye-catching. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Yu Qianqiu, let's see where you can escape to this time." He ran to the front and raised a huge sword shadow to slash down. When the water splashed down, Luo Qingtian actually drilled into the water along with the splashes. Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan rose into the air at the same time. When they saw the big green lantern at the bottom of the river, they immediately understood everything. The two of them looked at each other and cursed in their hearts. What was the difference between this brat and burying his head in the sand? There was a huge wave on the surface of the river, and a layer of ice as wide as the river emerged from the bottom of the river. It turned out that Luo Qingtian had moved the ice that was stuck to the bottom of the river. The buoyancy of the ice layer was great, and it immediately floated when it was removed from the bottom of the river. In the big ice that was 100 meters in length and width, there was a shining green shadow swimming around. They didn't need to guess to know that it was Yu Qianqiu. Luo Qingtian was deliberately making a fool of Yu Qianqiu. He wanted to use this method to regain some face. The shining green light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if Qianqiu felt. Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu suddenly realized that the ice, and you had Yu Qianqiu. The flickering cyan light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if it had sensed the arrival of danger. Just now, when the ice was shaking, Yu Qianqiu had felt that it was strange. He had accidentally discovered that he could vaguely see the sun in the sky. It was impossible for this to happen underwater. His heart suddenly sank, and he felt that something was wrong. The green fire quickly disappeared, and he immediately realized that the whole space of the ice layer was bright. Needless to say, with the basic knowledge from his previous life, he immediately judged that the ice layer had surfaced. The word danger immediately appeared in his mind. Luo Qingtian saw that the green light in the ice disappeared, and he paused for a moment. He immediately waved the huge sword shadow without hesitation, and slashed at the place where the light was. Suddenly, a green flame broke through the ice layer and burned fiercely. The huge sword shadow was a shadow formed by sword qi, so it was not afraid of the green fire. It immediately broke through the green fire, and with a loud bang, it directly cut the big ice layer, with a radius of 100 meters into two. The people who were concerned about Yu Qianqiu immediately turned pale. They didn't know what happened to him. Zi bit her lips tightly. She firmly believed that Elder Bai's disciple would definitely not get into trouble so easily. Luo Qingtian retracted his sword qi, held the sword, and stood steadily on the shaking ice layer. His pair of sharp eyes looked around. Before confirming that Yu Qianqiu was dead, he didn't dare to release his divine sense to scan again. He didn't know what strange method Yu Qianqiu used to damage his divine sense. That feeling was simply unforgettable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been frozen by Yu Qianqiu. At this moment, in the shaking ice layer, a figure dragged two black shadows and shot out from not far in front of Luo Qingtian. At some point, Yu Qianqiu had pulled out two strange-looking sabers. The sabers were 2 meters long and half a meter wide. They were black and shiny, and they didn't look like anything out of place. Not many people would be able to tell what style they were. Yu Qianqiu didn't care what style it was, as long as it was convenient to use. These two swords were suppressed by him using black fire. They imitated the style of the machetes used in his previous life, but they were enlarged a lot. However, the grip area wasn't enlarged, so it looked a little out of place. This sword was taken from the Netherworld Fire Sea. I don't believe it's useless. Yu Qianqiu roared in his heart. He jumped down from the sky and slashed at Luo Qingtian with the machetes in his hands. Such a big sword made Luo Qingtian slightly stunned. He flipped his hand, and a silver-white sword qi shot out, attacking the two big swords that were slashing at him. Swoosh swoosh. The two big black swords cut through the sword qi, as if they were cutting a piece of paper. Luo Qingtian and Yu Qianqiu were stunned. The former was shocked, and the latter didn't know that the black fire swords could cut through the sword qi. According to common sense, if it could block the sword qi of a master without being damaged, it was already a good treasure. They had never seen such a situation before. In fact, Yu Qianqiu didn't know how powerful the black fire was. Just think about it. After the burning black smoke formed a wind blade, it could break through the protective aura and easily cut through the dark steel, let alone the big swords formed by the black fire itself. Good swords. Dongfeng Chang, Ao and Qiu Yuan exclaimed immediately. The people watching the battle were amazed. They didn't expect that there was such a magic weapon in this world that could cut through the sword qi of a master as easily as cutting a piece of paper. Greed appeared in many people's eyes. The four patriarchs of the four major families exchanged glances. The four of them were favored by Bai Changchun, and each of them was rewarded with a low-grade spiritual treasure. Naturally, They thought that the strange swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands were good treasures given by Bai Changqun. After Luo Qingtian recovered from the shock, he immediately waved his sword to block the swords. Ding! The two big black machetes showed their power again. They directly cut the sword in Luo Qingtian's hands into 3 pieces. It was still effortless. Luo Qingtian was shocked. The swords were already in front of him, and he quickly dodged more than 10 meters away. He looked at the sword hilt in his hand and was speechless. This was the high-grade offensive magic weapon passed down by the Daluo sect's patriarch. How could it be so easily chopped off by someone with a knife? He really couldn't believe it. The sword of the Daluo sect's patriarch was also famous in the cultivation world. Anyone with a little common sense would know what kind of treasure it was. Now it was cut by someone just like that. The onlookers were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Even Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were dumbfounded. Only the 4 patriarchs showed an expression, as if they had expected it. Everyone looked at the 2 strange but inconspicuous big swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands, and immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be a legendary spiritual treasure? Otherwise, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he easily destroy a high-grade magic weapon? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were burning. Chapter 364. Don't run. Watch my blade. As soon as Luo Qingtian dodged, Yu Qianqiu chased after him like a crab with 2 big pincers. Once he got close, he raised his blade and slashed. When the former came back to his senses, he was already ashamed and resentful. The treasure passed down by Daluo sect's previous leaders was actually destroyed in his hands. How could he not feel ashamed and resentful? Of course, the most important thing at the moment was to avoid Yu Qianqiu's broadsword. This strange broadsword could even cut high-grade treasures like cutting vegetables, let alone a person. Luo Qingtian's speed was needless to say. However, close combat was also Yu Qianqiu's forte. The experience he had accumulated from risking his life in his previous life was not something that could be easily forgotten. Otherwise, he would not have gotten 2 machetes. For a moment, a spectacular scene appeared on the ice surface. Daluo sect's leader's figure was like a phantom, moving between the 2 broadswords. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was a brave man who was fearless. He wanted to kill Luo Qingtian with the machete in his hands. He didn't give Luo Qingtian any chance to stop and counterattack. His skill with the machete was so skillful that it made people gasp in amazement. He believed that even the martial arts masters in the secular world were no better than him. The 2 of them were entangled just like that. The spectators were dumbfounded. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't look like a fight between people from the cultivation world. Qiu Wuyuan said in a daze. Giving up his advantage, it looks like he's going to fight with his life. Luo Qingtian is a bit out of control. It's been more than 100 moves. Dongfang Chang'ao said, then turned his head and said, if the treasure passed down by 10,000 demons' previous leaders was destroyed in your hands, you would also be a bit out of control. Big broadsword. Ziyi's lips parted slightly. Yu Qianqiu's one-on-one style completely subverted her concept of fighting. This was especially so for that kind of valiant and unafraid of death. That kind of aura of either you die or I live was absolutely shocking. Speaking of which, Luo Qingtian was just impulsive. After a long time, he realized that it was hard for him to get close to Yu Qianqiu with his cultivation. He immediately came to his senses and realized that something was wrong. As the 2 sabers danced, there seemed to be a heart-palpitating aura and a bone-piercing chill. It was even colder than the ice beneath their feet. It was the kind of bone-chilling feeling. The most frightening thing was that there was an irresistible sense of trance. This was probably the reason why he had lost his composure. This pair of black broadswords was definitely not simple. As soon as he woke up, Luo Qingtian naturally wouldn't bother with him anymore. He found an opportunity and moved dozens of meters away in a flash. Yu Qianqiu became more and more courageous as the battle went on. He was having a great time fighting, so why did his opponent run away? He shouted, "Old thing, don't run." He carried a pair of large sabers and chased after them again. When the spectators heard this, their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. This brat was unforgiving when he had the upper hand. and he was addicted to fighting. Qiu Wuyuan lowered his head and sighed helplessly. Luo Qingtian, you've really embarrassed yourself today. Daoyuo mountain splitting palm. Luo Qingtian shouted before he could stand still. He raised his hand, and a huge palm shadow appeared. F***ck. Yu Qianqiu screamed and quickly stopped. If he was hit by this palm, his life would be in danger. Therefore, without saying anything, he threw a large saber with force, and the blade pointed directly at Luo Qingtian. When Luo Qingtian saw that his opponent actually abandoned the treasure to protect himself, a flash of joy appeared on his face. The Daoyuo sect leader's inheritance treasure was destroyed in his hands. If he could get a better treasure back, not only would he not be guilty, but he would also be rewarded. In an instant he had an idea. He instantly retracted the power of the mountain-splitting palm. His body moved to the side to avoid the blade, and he easily grabbed the handle of the saber. Not good. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan screamed at the same time. The latter's eyes were burning as he said, "If such a treasure falls into Luo Qingtian's hands, I'm afraid it won't be able to return." The moment Luo Qingtian grabbed the saber, he immediately felt the majestic and breathtaking power from the saber. It was a kind of power that seemed to come from the netherworld. It was a kind of power that could decide a person's life and death. It was gloomy, terrifying, cold, ruthless. At that moment, all kinds of extreme negative emotions spread from the saber. Luo Qingtian's body trembled, and he couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He held the saber and laughed wildly. "It's really a good saber. I've never seen such a treasure in my life. Haha." The eyes of the spectators were filled with greed again. This saber could be so affirmed by Luo Qingtian, so it was definitely not something that an ordinary treasure could compare with. Moreover, everyone had witnessed the power from before. "Yu Qianqiu, you destroyed my Daoyuo sect's inherited treasure. Now, your saber can be used as a scapegoat. From today onwards it belongs to my Daoyuo sect." Luo Qingtian pointed the long saber at Yu Qianqiu and said. On the shore, the group of Daoyuo sect disciples were also filled with joy. Yu Qianqiu silently put away the saber in his hand into his storage pouch, as if the fight was already over. Everyone suddenly realized that the deadline of 100 moves had long since passed. The sect master of the exalted immortal sect would not go back on his word. However, everyone felt that it was a pity. Although Yu Qianqiu's life was saved, he had lost such a treasure. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to get it back from Daoyuo sect in the future. Just as everyone was shaking their heads in pity, they heard Yu Qianqiu coldly snort and say, "My saber is my saber, and my things are my things. If I don't want to give it to you, no one can take it away. Only I am worthy of this saber." He slowly raised his finger towards Luo Qingtian and said, "You are not worthy. 100 moves have passed. I don't want to fight anymore. If you want to live, put down the saber, and I'll spare your life." Everyone shook their heads again. Everyone knew how to boast. Luo Qingtian's cultivation was higher than yours. Now that he had such a treasure, why would you, Yu Qianqiu, find trouble for yourself? Ziyi was probably the only one who believed that Yu Qianqiu wasn't boasting. She didn't believe Yu Qianqiu, but she believed that Elder Bai's disciple wouldn't boast. Since he said so, there must be a reason. Luo Qingtian held the saber horizontally in front of him and looked at it carefully. He sneered and said, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be too presumptuous. I promise I won't kill you after 100 moves, but I won't allow you to provoke me. If you make me angry, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your other saber. Since you're looking for death, don't blame me." Yu Qianqiu said coldly and suddenly shouted, "Put down the saber." As soon as he shouted, "Ah!" Luo Qingtian let out a scream, and the saber in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. Yu Qianqiu stretched out 2 fingers and flicked it expressionlessly. The big black saber on the ice bounced up and spun in the air. It went straight to the side of Yu Qianqiu. Everyone was shocked by the sudden change of situation. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other. With Luo Qingtian's cultivation in mind, how could ordinary pain make him scream so painfully? What was going on? Of course, they didn't know that this saber was condensed by black fire and was controlled by Yu Qianqiu. If Yu Qianqiu said it was a saber, then it was a saber. If he said it was fire, then it was fire. Just now, it only made Luo Qingtian hold the saber handle a little bit of black fire. Think about the black fire that even by Changchun couldn't overcome. How could Luo Qingtian bear it? Even if it was just a little bit of black fire. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to reveal the secret of the black fire for the time being. Otherwise, if the entire saber turned into a sea of black fire, Luo Qingtian wouldn't be alive. The disciples of Daoyuo sect couldn't bear it anymore. They quickly rushed over to check on their sect leader's injury. They were also vigilant of Yu Qianqiu, who was standing not far away with the saber. Dongfang Chang'eo, Qiu Wuyuan Zi, the four patriarchs, and many onlookers rushed onto the floating ice. The entire floating ice sank into the water. The water had already reached the top of everyone's shoes, but no one cared about it now. With so many people coming, Luo Qingtian bit his lips and endured the pain to not make a sound. The arm that he used to hold the saber was shaking nonstop. Everyone suddenly realized that Luo Qingtian's palm had already turned into white bones. There was a dark murderous aura on the wound, and it was still spreading to his arm. Wherever the murderous aura went, pieces of flesh would fall off. When they fell on the ice, they would slowly corrode and turn into blood. The situation was too horrible to look at. According to this situation, if the murderous aura didn't stop spreading, it wouldn't take long for Luo Qingtian to turn into a skeleton. Chapter 365. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They all turned to look at the saber that was stabbed into the ground beside Yu Qianqiu. They didn't know what was on the saber, but it was able to injure someone so badly just by holding it. Everyone suspected that there was poison on the saber, and it wasn't an ordinary poison. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtian's cultivation, how could he be injured like this? Daoyuo sect's shop manager, Yi Haiping, suddenly walked to Dongfang Chang'eo's side and bowed with a sorrowful expression. Elder Dongfang, Fuxian Island is the leader of the righteous sects in the cultivation world. Daoyuo sect is also a part of the righteous sections. I hope Elder Dongfang can find a way to save our sect leader. These words were immediately met with a cold snort from Qiu Wuyuan. This kind of injury was extremely strange. What method could Dongfang Changgao have to treat it? It was just that he had offended Yu Qianqiu, so he couldn't ask for help. Instead, he blamed Fuxian Island and asked Dongfang Chang'eo to help. The righteous sects were all deceiving people. Dongfang Chang'eo frowned. How could he not understand what Yi Haiping meant? He looked a little hesitant, but he was actually overjoyed. If he could get the antidote from Yu Qianqiu to cure Luo Qingtian, he could bring Yu Qianqiu back to Fuxian Island. Daoyuo sect would owe him a favor, and the sect would praise him for doing it properly. With this consideration, he turned to Yu Qianqiu and said, Yu Qianqiu, sect leader Luo said that after 100 moves, the grudge between you and Daoyuo sect will be over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you have the antidote, why don't you take it out now and end this as soon as possible? Yu Qianqiu looked at Elder Dongfang, who used to be in the sect, and shook his head. Elder Dongfang, I don't have the antidote, and I don't need it. This isn't poison. It's just the killing intent on the saber. The injured can't be cured. Killing intent? Everyone was shocked and looked at the saber. It had a strange black luster, but they couldn't see anything strange about it. When Yu Qianqiu saw that the group didn't believe him, he flicked his finger on the blade. With a wung-wung sound, the big black blade immediately emitted a faint black mist. Those who were close to it shivered, feeling a chill that seeped into their bones. One by one, they retreated, especially afraid of being touched by the black mist. Nice blade! Qiu Wuyuan couldn't help but exclaim. Dongfang Chang'eo looked at the saber from top to bottom in disbelief. Although the saber was vicious, it was a good treasure. The greed in everyone's eyes was faintly discernible and difficult to conceal. Yu Qianqiu swept a cold glance over and snorted. Those who have designs on my saber, listen up. This saber is stuck here. If you have the ability, take it. Yu Qianqiu will not say a word. Is there such a good thing? The group of people was suddenly eager to try, but no one dared to step forward. After all, Luo Qingtian was already in such a state with his cultivation. Sect leader, a group of Dalyo sect disciples suddenly exclaimed. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from the saber to Luo Qingtian's body. They saw that his injured arm was gone, and an arm that was almost completely corroded into bones was lying on the ground. The bones were also slowly rotting in the wind. This Luo Qingtian was really cruel to himself. When he heard that there was no cure, in order to save his life, he actually took action himself and used his left hand to remove his right arm. However, this was still a good way to save his life. Although he lost an arm, his life was at least saved. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows slightly. In fact, it wasn't that he couldn't save Luo Qingtian. He could completely absorb the killing intent, but he wouldn't do that. His thought was that since they were opponents, they should have the awareness of being opponents. It was a bit ridiculous to expect an opponent to save an opponent. How could there be such a good thing all the time, unless the opponent had some ulterior motives? This was the reality that both the winner and the loser had to face. There was no such thing as logic. Luo Qingtian was indeed a character, at least in front of everyone. After he stood up with the help of the inner sect disciples, he stared at Yu Qianqiu with a pale face and said, "From today onwards, the grievances between me and Dalyo sect and Yu Qianqiu will be written off." He was indeed qualified to say such words on behalf of Dalyo sect. After he finished speaking, he was helped away by the disciples. However, everyone could clearly see the resentment in those disciples' eyes as they looked at Yu Qianqiu before they left. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He was even more determined to settle the score with Dalyo sect. He would not show any mercy. The dignified Dalyo sect leader ended up like this. The entire Dalyo sect's face was lost. Everyone sighed incessantly. When they looked at Yu Qianqiu again, they suddenly came to a realization. This guy was definitely a famous figure in the cultivation world. He'd challenged the exalted immortal sect master one-on-one, and won. After one night, his name would probably shake the entire cultivation world. Although he did not win with his own cultivation, Dharma arts and treasures were also part of his strength. There was nothing to doubt about that. By right, the crowd should have dispersed by now, but they were still lingering. Naturally, they were still drooling over the treasured saber. Who asked Yu Qianqiu to say that? Brother Yu. Qiu Wuyuan rubbed his hands together and said with some embarrassment, "You said that the saber will belong to whoever can take it away. Is that true? Senior Qiu, you've known me for so many years. When have you ever seen me lie?" Yu Qianqiu smiled and continued, "But I advise Senior Qiu not to try. Why don't you watch the show?" Qiu Wuyuan was a little hesitant. What if someone else took away such a good thing? However, he wasn't confident either. In the end, he pursed his lips and said reluctantly, "What a pity. All right, I'll listen to you." "As if I'm confident that you'll listen to me." Yu Qianqiu retracted his smile and looked around. He said in a deep voice, "I don't have time to play with everyone here. If anyone wants to try, come at me. If there's no one else, I'll be keeping the saber and leaving." Even though everyone was eager to try, there were a few experts present who did not say anything. Naturally, it was not convenient for the rest to take the lead. Unexpectedly, someone behind Yu Qianqiu asked weakly, "Can I go and try?" It was a woman's voice. Yu Qianqiu almost fainted when he heard that. "I set up the arena here with a plan. Why did you come and ruin my plan?" The person who said this was none other than Ze. She was also excited to see such a treasure. However, how could Yu Qianqiu let her try? He was afraid that she would take it away the moment she took it. He didn't dare to hurt her. "Others can, but not you." Yu Qianqiu rejected her straightforwardly. This time Ze couldn't take it anymore. She turned to face him and asked coldly, "Why can others but not me? It's fine if you're stubborn. But why did you come out and ruin my plans?" Yu Qianqiu couldn't get angry at her. He kicked the back of the saber, and the saber tilted. He grabbed the handle and pulled it out. He looked around and said, "I, Yu Qianqiu, am an honest person. I don't talk nonsense. Words that have been spoken are like water that has been spilled. There's no way to take them back. However, I see that everyone here is very polite. It's not a good idea to keep giving way. How about this? Patriarch Wu." He turned around and shouted, "How many spirit stones do you think my saber is worth?" Wu Sihai came closer and said in surprise, What? What do you want to do? Do you want to sell the saber? Don't think too much. If I auction this saber, what do you think the starting price will be? Yu Qianqiu smiled. Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. They had the same doubts as Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai looked at him suspiciously and said in a deep voice, if you auction it, the origin, name, material, power, and whether it can be used repeatedly are all factors that determine the price. Yu Qianqiu looked at the crowd and said with a smile, it's said that someone brought this saber out from the Eastern Holy Land. As for his origin, I don't know anything. However, one thing is for sure. It can definitely be used repeatedly. I've used it for a very long time. What, the legendary Eastern Holy Land? A wave of exclamations came from all directions. Experienced cultivators had all heard of this place. It was the ruins of an ancient war. Something that could come out from there might be a spirit treasure. No wonder this saber's power was so domineering. It turned out that it came from the Eastern Holy Land. Ziyi frowned in doubt. Who would have the ability to bring something out from the Eastern Holy Land? Yu Qianqiu didn't care about everyone's glowing eyes. He looked at Wu Sihai and said, just estimate the starting price for the auction. Don't be too high. 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Wu Sihai was silent for a while and finally spat out this number. That's too high. Yu Qianqiu said in a clear voice. I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word. I said that whoever can draw this saber will have this saber. I won't go back on my word. However, it seems that everyone has a lot of scruples. I'm afraid that those who don't have the ability will lose their lives in vain. Here, I, Yu Qianqiu, solemnly declare to the entire cultivation world that in 3 days, I will be holding a saber-drawing conference on Hat Island. In order to prevent people with bad intentions from causing trouble, those who draw the saber must pay 10 million high-grade spirit stones in advance. The time limit is 15 minutes. Of course, those who have more money can try again as long as they pay. Chapter 366. What if it's really taken away by 10 million high-grade spirit stones? Are you really willing to let someone take away such a treasure? Someone in the crowd shouted. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the knee-deep river and laughed heartily. This floating ice can't bear the burden anymore. Let's talk about it after we get ashore. He kept the saber and rode his flying sword to the shore first. The group of people was too engrossed in the treasure and didn't care about what was happening under their feet. After Yu Qianqiu reminded them, they all went ashore. When almost everyone was there, Yu Qianqiu pointed at the person who spoke earlier and said, I won't hide it from you. I, Yu Qianqiu, will say anything. I've never lied since I was young. It's innate and can't be changed. If someone really took away the saber with 10 million high-grade spirit stones, not only will I not regret it, but I will also congratulate him. Today, I'll leave this statement here. Everyone can be a witness. The time limit is 15 minutes. Isn't the time too short? Someone asked again. However, those who asked this question were basically people who could afford 10 million. Yu Qianqiu explained enthusiastically. It won't do if there's no time limit. If someone takes a few days to draw the saber, what will happen to the people behind them? Many people laughed secretly. It seemed like some people really had this thought. 10 million per person, isn't it a little expensive? Another person asked. It's not expensive at all. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said. Just now, Clan Head Wu estimated it at 100 million. Everyone heard it. Wu Clan has a foothold in the cultivation world, because of their reputation. I believe everyone won't doubt it. If I, Yu Qianqiu, am really greedy, I won't set the price at 10 million. I'll directly set it at 100 million. Originally, I didn't want to charge a single spirit stone for this saber drawing conference. But after thinking about it, I can't accept it. If you don't accept it, then everyone in the cultivation world will flock here. Everyone will want to have a try, and there will definitely be a big mess. But if you set the price too high, wouldn't you? That would be unfair to those who have the ability but not enough money. So I directly reduced the price of 100 million to 10 million. This way, there would be a threshold for more people to participate, and it would also avoid unnecessary trouble. Yu Qianqiu, you said that those who can afford to pay can try again. For most people, This is not fair enough. If some people fail to pull it out, they won't have a second chance. But those who have money can try again. The person who spoke turned around and asked the crowd, "Everyone, don't you think it's unfair?" Immediately many people joined in and jeered. Yes, it's not fair. Everyone can only try once. The scene became a little chaotic. Without saying a word, Yu Qianqiu took out the machete from his storage pouch. The machete immediately emitted a breathtaking aura. It was as if the entire machete was possessed by a demon from the netherworld. Under the sun, there was not even the slightest bit of reflection. Those who were near the machete shuddered and retreated. The scene quietened down and everyone's eyes focused on the machete. Although the machete did not look like much, its power was unquestionable. It was definitely a good treasure. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything. He held the machete horizontally and let everyone admire it. Peeping at other people's treasures was also a taboo in the cultivation world. But now, the owner of the treasure was so generous, so everyone naturally would not miss the opportunity to carefully examine it. However, some people were restless. They could not get enough of looking at it with their eyes. They actually released their divine senses to check, hoping to peep at the mysteries within. This time it was lively. Immediately, more than a dozen screams came from the crowd. The dozen people held their heads with their hands and lay on the ground wailing. The others immediately became vigilant, not knowing what was happening. Yu Qianqiu threw the machete in the air. The machete fell and went straight into the ground beside him. He held the handle with one hand and sneered. I forgot to remind everyone that this machete is extremely powerful. I don't think any Dharma treasure below the level of a numinous treasure can withstand its sharpness. However, it also has another effect. It can hurt people's divine senses. Sect leader Luo had suffered from it before. I believe these dozen people have used their divine senses to check this treasure just now, right? So that was the case. Everyone relaxed their vigilance. No one cared about the dozen people who were still groaning in pain. Their eyes focused on the machete again, and their greed could not be concealed. They did not expect this machete to be so magical. It could actually hurt people's divine senses. It was really an amazing treasure. No wonder Luo Qingtian suddenly let out a scream for no reason. It turned out that his divine senses had been hurt by this treasure. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan also found it a little difficult to move their eyes away from the machete. What that friend said just now is right. The previous method seems to be a little unfair. How about this? The price and time limit for drawing the machete remain the same. Each person can only do it once. However, there are many rogue cultivators in the cultivation world. They do not belong to any sect. Compared to those who have sects, they are the most disadvantaged. In order to reflect absolute fairness, each sect or family can only send one person to draw the machete. It's still the same saying. The machete belongs to whoever can draw it. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu asked. This was good for most people, but for those big sects it was a loss. Which sect didn't want to get their hands on such a treasure? However, everyone saw the power of this machete. Even Luo Qingtian could not resist it. Which sect could guarantee that they could draw it? The big sects had a lot of money and experts. They definitely wanted to try a few more times. Yu Qianqiu's words were considered fair, but no one dared to agree. Most people looked at Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan, and these two people also glanced at the crowd with burning eyes. Because of fairness, the atmosphere was a little gloomy. After waiting for a while, no one said anything. Yu Qianqiu walked to Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan and bowed. He smiled bitterly and said, Seniors, please take the lead and say something. Elder Qiu, you know how I am. I always mean what I say. At the beginning, everyone felt that the rules were unfair. I had no choice but to change the rules. But now no one said anything. I am really in a dilemma. Seniors, please say something for me. Hehe. Qiu Wuyuan sneered and glanced at the crowd. Brother Yu, I have known you for many years. You are indeed a man of your words. The treasure is yours. You have also set the rules. No one has the right to change the rules. Do what you should, and don't allow others to criticize you. If anyone is dissatisfied with your strength, I will be the first one who can't stand it. Whoever is dissatisfied, come at me. I, Qiu Wuyuan, agree with the original rules and object to the new rules? Dongfang Chang, Ao nodded slightly and said, the rules of fairness should be reflected on everyone, not just the sections. There are big and small sects, and there are also different numbers of disciples. We can't let the other disciples lose the chance to fight for the treasure because of the suppression of the elders in the sect. I think the original rules are fairer. His words sounded nice. If a disciple of a sect obtained the treasure, who could keep it for themselves? They would still have to hand it over to the sect. Moreover, how many disciples could take out 10 million yuan? Among the righteous and demonic sects, one was rude and unyielding, while the other was tactful and more skillful. But their goal was the same, which was to agree with the original rules. Since the two leaders of the righteous and demonic sects had spoken, the others didn't dare to have any objections. In the end, they still followed the original rules. Since no one has any objections, please spread the rules of this saber-drawing meet to the entire cultivation world. I, Yu Qianqiu, also hope that this treasure can be obtained by someone capable. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands at the crowd. He casually picked up the huge saber from the ground and stuffed it into his storage bag. Then he patted his butt and left. Seeing how easily he drew the saber, everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 367. The bridge from Hat Island to the Wu clan had been burned. Although the floating ice on the river was enough to carry Yu Qianqiu and the others, they had to fly over. The crowd dispersed one after another, anxious to report back to the sect what had happened here. Dongfang Chang, Ao, and Chou Wuyuan watched Yu Qianqiu leave. After a while, the two of them glanced at each other at the same time and snorted disdainfully. The two of them, who had a tacit understanding just a moment ago, split up. In quiet guest house, Yu Qianqiu walked around and unexpectedly didn't see Wu Lixue. However, he didn't have the mood to think too much about it. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach that stubborn girl a lesson. When he returned to the living room, Ziyi was standing there with an embarrassed face. She seemed to have realized her mistake. Yu Qianqiu sneered, then turned to face her and said in a strange tone, I really don't know why my master sent you to follow me. Help me. Using the method of working against me to assist me? That's my honor. Thank you for your cooperation. But I've had enough. Now please go back to Shuntian Island and find my master. Tell him that I'm a difficult person to work with. I'm the one who chased you away. You can push all the blame to me. I won't refute it. Then, you can stay in your South Sea purple bamboo forest. Please. I won't send you off. He gestured to the door. Ziyi's slightly drooping face suddenly lifted up. She said with some resentment, You want to chase me away? How can I face Elderby like this? What a joke. You also know that you don't have the face to face my master? Yu Qianqiu asked with a sullen face. Do you know why I took out my treasure to hold that sword-drawing assembly? I didn't know at first, but now I know. Ziyi's face drooped again and she said, For the spirit stones. Then do you know why I need the spirit stones? Yu Qianqiu asked bitterly. This time, Ziyi's head drooped even lower. Her voice was almost inaudible as she said, To complete Elderbai's great trust. So you knew. I thought you didn't know. Yu Qianqiu immediately rebuked him harshly. Then why did you ruin my plan at that critical moment? You keep saying that you want to complete the task that my master entrusted to you. Is this how you complete it? Do you think I would dare to keep you by my side? I think there's no need for you to do anything more. And we can return to Obedient Island to complete our mission. Only Yu Qianqiu could say such harsh words to such a pure and beautiful woman. However, this guy had made up his mind to educate Ziyi. He had to do it while this girl was still pure. Otherwise, if she became as cunning as the Enchantress of 100 Charms, he wouldn't be able to fool her even if he wanted to. So, he had to take the opportunity to educate her. From now on, he had to make her firmly believe that everything Yu Qianqiu said and did was right. I was wrong, don't chase me back. Ziyi lowered her head as she said this. She actually started to sob. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He didn't think that he could make a late-stage transcending tribulation cultivator cry. His heart softened a little, but he immediately hardened his heart and said fiercely, I was wrong? What a simple sentence. Does it mean that when someone does something wrong, they just have to say they were wrong, and everything will be fine? Then what's the point of fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Ze immediately shook her head and said, "Don't chase me back. Give me another chance. I won't go against you in the future. I'll do whatever you say." "Humph. You say it nicely, but when your temper flares up one day, I'm afraid you'll forget what you said today." Yu Qianqiu expressed his disbelief. "I promise." Ziyi raised her hand and wiped the tears from her eyes. She said seriously, "If you don't believe me, I can swear. From the looks of it, you really do know your mistake. Then I'll believe you this once. You don't have to swear it. I believe you won't make me sad again, because you're not that kind of stupid woman." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand in thought. "If your father knows that I made you swear like this, he definitely won't forgive me." After he finished thinking, he took out a spirit pill from his bag of holding and opened his palm in front of Ze. Ze, who had a cautious expression on her face, suddenly had stars appear in her eyes. Yu Qianqiu had a 7-colored spirit pill in his hand. Rich spirit energy surrounded the pill, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary spirit pill. Actually, whether or not the pill was good wasn't what attracted her, but the beautiful 7-colored light. It was natural for women to love beauty. "Here, eat it now." Yu Qianqiu smiled and handed it to Ze. Ze took it suspiciously and asked, "What kind of spirit pill is this? Do I eat it now?" As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Yu Qianqiu's expression sink. Ze immediately remembered what she had just promised him and swallowed it without hesitation. She stood to the side without saying anything, silently feeling the changes in her body. Yu Qianqiu walked to the chair opposite her and sat down. He smiled and asked, "Have you heard of the Rui pill? I've heard from my master that it is a rare treasure of the human world. Consuming one can make one youthful. And it can also..." Ze paused and pointed at herself in disbelief. She stammered, What I just consumed, could it be Rui pill?" "That's right, it's the rare Rui pill you mentioned." Yu Qianqiu smiled. This was what it meant to give a carrot after a stick. He was going to teach her a lesson, and not be afraid that she wouldn't listen to him in the future. Ze was so flustered that she didn't know what to say. The Rui pill could make people stay young. It was something that all women dreamed of. She took a long time to calm down and said, "Yu Qianqiu, thank you." Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu stood up and said disappointedly, "Hey, originally, this pill could be sold for at least 100 million upper spiritual stones. It might even be more than that. I kept it for myself for a long time, but I can't let you work with me for nothing. Just take it that you've done me a favor, and I'm paying you for it. Now that you've taken my salary, you can't throw a tantrum in the future." When Ze heard this, she couldn't be excited anymore. She stood there with an idiotic look on her face. According to Yu Qianqiu, this was a time when they needed money. Did she eat 100 million just like that? Could it be more than 100 million? Moreover, Yu Qianqiu couldn't bear to eat it himself, but he gave it to her. She really owed him a big favor. She might not be able to repay him. Just when the two of them were speechless, Wu Lixue walked in from outside. Her face was pale, and she didn't look good. When she saw Yu Qianqiu, she actually bowed and said, "My grandfather and the others are outside the courtyard. They want to come in and greet you." Yu Qianqiu was surprised and said, "Shuai, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" He walked over and wanted to touch her forehead. Unexpectedly, Wu Lixue immediately took a few steps back, as if she was avoiding a thief. This made Yu Qianqiu's caring hand miss. This time, Yu Qianqiu was even more surprised. How did a lively and lovely woman who was in love become like this? There must be a big change. He then narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Shuai, what's wrong with you? Did someone bully you? Who dares to touch my woman? Tell me, I'll kill his whole family." Wu Lixue didn't say anything. Whenever Yu Qianqiu took a step closer, she would take a step back. Yu Qianqiu was instantly anxious. He chuckled coldly and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? I'll go out now and kill everyone I see. I'll definitely find someone who knows." After speaking, he let out a cold snort and flung his sleeves before rushing out. Yu Qianqiu was famous in the cultivation world for daring to do anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the titles of scum and lunatic. Wu Lixue often cared about him, so she naturally heard of his deeds. She definitely believed that he could really start a massacre in the Wu clan. She immediately blocked the door and pleaded, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be reckless. I'll tell you." "Say it. What exactly is going on?" Yu Qianqiu asked in a deep voice. Wu Lixue had a painful expression as she bit her lips and said, "I heard that you are my clan's old ancestor's personal disciple. Even my grandfather and the others have to respect you as a teacher. It is against the rules for us to be together." Yu Qianqiu raised his brows and immediately understood what was going on. He immediately spoke straightforwardly, "Bullsh*t. Who's the one spouting nonsense? I have no relationship with your Wu clan's old ancestor. When did I become your old ancestor's personal disciple? This is pure nonsense." Ziyi's eyes moved back and forth between the two of them. There were many things she couldn't understand, but she had a slight pain in her stomach and was holding on to it. Wu Lixue's tightly knitted brows gradually relaxed. There was a trace of pleasant surprise on her face, but she didn't dare to reveal it. She asked weakly, "Is it true? Then why did Elder Wu Zhengang tell me this?" "You silly lass. Don't you know that I have a grudge with him? He is purposely using you to anger me and make me unhappy. Don't you understand?" Yu Qianqiu pretended to be angry as he reprimanded. However, he was really angry in his heart. "It's Wu Zhengang again. I haven't even settled the score with you, but you are here to stir up trouble. Very good." "Really?" Wu Lixue's eyes lit up. "Of course it's true. Your grandfather and the others respect me because my current master is highly respected in the cultivation world. It's not as complicated as you think." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and caressed her hair. There was a rare gentleness in his eyes. He thought in his heart, "Originally, I could openly use Old Man Bai's name to extort money from the 4 major clans. I gave up doing that because of you. Furthermore, your surname is Wu and you have no blood relationship with the surname Bai. How can the surname Bai be your old ancestor? Bring her to the bath first." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Ziyi and pouted to the outside. "Also, let your grandfather and the others come in." When Wu Lixue saw Ziyi, he was immediately startled. He exclaimed, "Ziyi, what happened to you?" He saw that on Ziyi's exposed skin, there was a black stain. It was a bit scary. Ziyi was also shocked when she touched it. However, she might have some understanding of the Rui pill. After the shock, she immediately reacted. After looking at Yu Qianqiu, she immediately urged Wu Lixue to bring her away. After watching the two women leave, Yu Qianqiu thought about making another batch of Rui pill when he had the time. The footsteps outside interrupted his thoughts. He put on a smile and went out to welcome them. The patriarchs of the 4 major clans, the 6 clan elders, and the more important elders of the Wu clan were all here. The greetings between the two parties were a little awkward. Now, because of Yu Qianqiu's identity, although they hadn't said it openly, everyone didn't know how to address him. Yu Qianqiu didn't care. He made way and waved his hand. "Everyone, if you have something to say, please come in and take a seat. We can talk slowly." The group of people nodded and walked into the hall one after another. Just as everyone entered in a single file, Yu Qianqiu's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fierceness. A clump of green flames that had been raised to the extreme suddenly appeared in his hand, and he suddenly shot it at Wu Zhengang, who was passing by. At such a close distance, Wu Zhengang was unprepared. Before he could react, he was enveloped by the raging green flame. "Ah!" A short scream resounded through the quiet guest house. As the green flame disappeared, Wu Zhengang had already turned into ashes. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. "No matter what intentions you had when you said those words to Wu Lixue, I will kill you. Whatever intentions you have will be for naught." The people of the 4 major clans suddenly looked over and were instantly stunned. But Yu Qianqiu put on a smiling face, as if nothing had happened. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone take a seat inside. I was just about to discuss the matter of the saber drawing assembly with everyone. Please." He took the lead and walked into the hall. Chapter 368. He could act as though nothing had happened, But it was impossible for the Wu clan to act as though nothing had happened. Especially with Wu Zhenggang's status, which was only slightly inferior to the clan head Wu Sihai. He already had a group of followers in the Wu clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone against the clan head Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai was stunned on the spot, and the group was dumbfounded. The first to react was Wu Zhenggang's backer Wu Bao. He teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu and clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. His face was completely red as he shouted angrily, "Yu Qianqiu, how am I impudent?" Yu Qianqiu smiled with his eyes squinted. The group recovered from the shock. The 5 clan elders from the 4 major clans teleported over and stood in between the two of them. But they didn't know what to say, especially Bai clan's clan elder Bai Yunshan. In terms of seniority, Yu Qianqiu was their clan's senior. To the other 3 clans, it wasn't an overboard thing to disobey the teachings of their ancestors from 2,000 years ago. Therefore, now that Yu Qianqiu had killed a Wu clan elder, Bai Yunshan was the most embarrassed. He couldn't help, but he couldn't not either. After all, Yu Qianqiu was backed by his clan's proud ancestor. But it wasn't right for Yu Qianqiu to kill someone without a reason. Bai Yunshan guarded against Wu Bao and asked Yu Qianqiu, "Yu Qianqiu, why did you kill Wu Zhengang? If you don't give a reasonable reason, I'm afraid the Wu clan won't tolerate you." The 4 clan heads looked at each other and didn't say a word. It was better to let the 6 clan elders handle such a troublesome matter. Reason? There were plenty of reasons. Yu Qianqiu sneered. "You are Bai Yunshan from the 4 major clans, right?" Bai Yunshan frowned and nodded. "Yes." "Good. I didn't tell you my identity before, but I believe you have guessed it. I will tell you now." Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and bowed towards the Fey Ghost region and said, "My master is the world's #1 expert, the Fey Ghost region's punishment enforcer, a late-stage soul formation cultivator by Changchun. Yu Qianqiu was ordered by my master to handle some matters. Now that I have met my master's descendant, the Bai clan's descendant, should greet him respectfully." Although everyone already knew Yu Qianqiu's identity, the shock they felt when they heard it from his mouth was indescribable. Bai Yunshan and Bai Shouji were so moved that their lips were trembling. Without saying a word, they obediently walked to Yu Qianqiu and knelt down. Bai Yunshan sincerely bowed and said, "The descendants of the Bai clan are indebted to our ancestors, allowing us to survive for more than 2,000 years. We dare not forget our ancestors." Descendant Bai Yunshan and son Bai Shouji kowtowed to Mr. The 2 of them immediately kowtowed as soon as they finished speaking. They were still extremely excited. The reason why the 2 of them were so excited was that Yu Qianqiu's words had stimulated the proudest part of their hearts. Who in the cultivation world dared to claim to be the world's #1 expert? The ancestor of the Bai clan dared to do so. Who in the world could control the demon ghost domain where demons and ghosts roamed freely? It was their ancestor. How many cultivators of the late deity stage were there in the world? Their ancestor was one of them. The glory of their ancestors would naturally shine on their descendants. The 2 of them could not help but be excited. After kowtowing, father and son were still kneeling there, waiting for Yu Qianqiu to wake them up. Yu Qianqiu graciously accepted their greetings. Then, he looked at the other 3 clans and said, "After all, the 3 of you are not my master's bloodline descendants. Although you all follow the teachings of your ancestors, and regard my master as your ancestor, I dare not ask too much of you. However, if you receive a drop of kindness from someone, you must repay it with a gushing spring. If the 4 great clans are willing to kowtow and pay their respects, then do so now." Hearing this, the clan leaders and clan elders of the Tan clan and the Jing clan also kneeled down and paid their respects. The people of the Wu clan instantly looked at each other. Logically, they should go and pay their respects. However, Yu Qianqiu had just killed Wu Zhengang. Moreover, he had not given a reason yet. Who could bring themselves to bow and pay their respects? If they wanted to pay their respects, Yu Qianqiu could have just given any reason. But what was going on now? Could it be that this kid wanted to break up the 4 great clans? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianqiu with a gloomy expression. When Yu Qianqiu asked the people of the 3 clans to stand up, he suddenly winked at him. Wu Sihai was momentarily stunned. Then he immediately realized what was going on. In his heart, he immediately prostrated himself in admiration. This kid was really something. Not only did he kill Wu Zhengang for revenge, he also solved the problem of seniority with Shui Air. His intelligence and ability to respond to emergencies were really outstanding. I have accepted your 3 clans' greetings and confirmed my status with your 3 clans. The Wu clan is not willing to pay their respects to me. Naturally, there is no seniority relationship between me and the Wu clan. Of course. Yu Qianqiu looked at the Wu clan and said, I personally cannot represent my master. This is a matter between me and your Wu clan. Your 4 major clans will still be your 4 major clans. There is no need for you to tie everything together endlessly. The development of the matter didn't exceed Wu Sihai's expectations, but he didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had another reason for doing this. It wasn't easy to get the Wu clan's money because of Wu Lixue, but the other 3 clans weren't weak, either. He had to find a way to get them to fork out some money. He had already thought it through. Since Bai Changchun had given the authority to him, the old fellow wouldn't mind if he were to get some money from his descendants. The matter of seniority has been clarified. Now let's talk about Wu Zhenggang's matter. There is no hurry to settle everything one by one. Yu Qianqiu turned to the other 3 clans and said, Your 3 clans might be curious why I wanted to kill Wu Zhengang. If the Wu clan hasn't forgotten about the reason, you should be clear about it. Why don't your 3 clans ask the Wu clan? The hall went silent, and only Wu Bao was still panting with rage. In fact, the 4 major clans knew about the grudge between Yu Qianqiu and Wu Zhengang. They also knew that Yu Qianqiu said he would take Wu Zhenggang's life. It was just that this matter happened too suddenly, and even the victim didn't have time to react. The other 3 clans might have confirmed the seniority with Yu Qianqiu, but they were all flesh, and it wouldn't be good to help anyone. I refuse to accept this. Wu Bao roared and looked at everyone. Yu Qianqiu might be the old ancestor's disciple, but what right does he have to kill wantonly in my Wu clan? What right does he have? Don't implicate my master. I am only asking you. What right does that Wu Zhengang have to kill me? Could it be that he doesn't need a reason to kill others, but others need a reason to take revenge? Tell me, what right does Wu Zhengang have? Could it be that just because you are his backer in the Wu clan, he can act unscrupulously? Yu Qianqiu spoke with an icy cold tone. Wu Bao opened his mouth. He knew that what Yu Qianqiu said was the truth, and everyone knew about this matter. Wu Bao didn't know how to refute. Most importantly, he couldn't reason with Yu Qianqiu, and he couldn't use force either. Be it reasoning or forcing logic, Yu Qianqiu had never been afraid of anyone. Yu Qianqiu stared at Wu Bao and spoke in a deep voice. I don't wish to have any impulsive conflict with the Wu clan. Since you don't accept me, I can make an exception and bring you to the Demon Ghost region to meet my master. I will let my master decide the right and wrong. I wonder if my master's words can convince you? Hearing that they were going to meet Bai Changchun, everyone's eyes were fixated on Wu Bao. It was unknown if they were envious or worried, but Wu Bao was instantly speechless. This matter will be put aside for now. After I settle the matter that my master instructed, my master and your ancestor will decide the right and wrong of this matter. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone and asked. I agree. Wu Zhen took the lead to agree, and Wu Rui nodded as well. Wu Sihai naturally didn't have anything to say, let alone the other Wu clan's elders. Finally, the 4 major clans decided to put this matter on hold and wait for Bai Changchun to handle it. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, All right, since everyone has agreed, we will put aside the grudges for now. The saber drawing meet still needs to borrow your Wu clan's venue, and we will need your Wu clan's help for this matter. Let us discuss this matter first. Chapter 369. The holding of the saber drawing ceremony could be said to have set off a huge uproar in the cultivation world. A treasured saber from the Eastern Holy Land. This gimmick alone was enough to attract people. What kind of place was the Eastern Holy Land? It was an ancient battlefield where ancient spiritual treasures had been used for generations. No one knew how many mysterious things were left there. In addition, Yu Qianqiu had defeated the Daoyuo sect master with this saber, so it was hard not to be jealous. The major sects gathered their masters and counted the spirit stones in their storage. They were all full of confidence and prepared to get the saber back. Some small sects that were not strong enough also asked their ancestors to help. Some small sects that did not have enough spirit stones even borrowed money from everywhere to give it a try. Who wouldn't be tempted by a mere 10 million spirit stones that could possibly be exchanged for a spiritual treasure? After all, the saber was very strange. It was not something that could be obtained by someone with a high cultivation level. Luo Qingtian's cultivation level was high, right? He still could not take it away. Yu Qianqiu's cultivation level was not high, right? He still chased Luo Qingtian everywhere with the saber in his hand. For a time, no one in the cultivation world mentioned the fact that Yu Qianqiu defeated Luo Qingtian. Everyone was concerned about who could take the saber away. It was very likely to be a spiritual treasure. Whoever got it, even if they did not have the fortune to enjoy it, they could still auction it at the Wu clan. That would be a big profit. At this time, Yu Qianqiu released important news to the outside world through the 4 major families. I, Yu Qianqiu, am really ashamed that I have alarmed the entire cultivation world because of this small matter. Good things come in pairs. I am willing to take out the other treasured saber for the saber drawing contest. Both sabers will be drawn at the same time, so that those who have the ability to get this saber will not return empty-handed. The cultivation world was shocked again. If some people felt that there was no hope for one saber, then there was much more hope for 2 sabers. Therefore, all the sects were actively preparing spirit stones. Big sects like the Fuxian Island and the 10,000 Demons had many talents and strong financial resources. They were even more prepared to get the 2 sabers in one go. The East Sea was far away, and the blue waves surged to the heavens. Seabirds soared on a lonely island in the sea. It was unknown when many more buildings had appeared between the mountains, but on the waist of the highest peak on the island, there was even a grand palace that was neither too big nor too small. The island was a nameless island, but the palace was called the Limitless Palace. Therefore, the island was also called the Limitless Island. The owner of the Limitless Palace was none other than the father and son of the Yan family, who were forced to flee overseas. Within the palace, Yan Bugui was at the entrance of the terrifying crypt, anxiously pacing back and forth with his fists clasped. Her. Mournful howls could be heard coming from the crypt, and the sound was extremely heart-wrenching. Yan Bugui was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He stopped in his tracks and leaned against the entrance of the crypt, tears streaming down his face. After a long time, the screams stopped, but heavy breathing could still be heard from inside. At this moment, 7 people dressed in distinctive clothing walked out one after another. All 7 of them were drenched in sweat, as if they had been soaked in water. The leader was a burly man with a leather waistcoat and a black cloak. His bare arms were drenched in sweat. Seeing them come out, Yan Bugui rushed over and pulled that man, asking anxiously, "State Preceptor Man how's the star chasing?" The man called State Preceptor Man who let out a long breath and nodded. "It's a success. Young Palace Master's wisdom is indeed extraordinary. For so many years, countless people have died under the 7-star blood-piercing technique, but no one has ever succeeded. To think that young Palace Master actually made it through." Hearing that it was a success, Yan Bugui was anxious to see his son. He wanted to rush into the crypt, but was pulled back by the State Preceptor Man who. The latter shook his head and said, "Palace Master Yan, it's better not to go in now. Young Palace Master has just formed his devil body through the 7-star blood-piercing technique, and his wisdom has changed greatly. I'm afraid that no one will recognize him for the time being. If you go in, it might cause a misunderstanding. Please wait patiently for a day." "Devil body?" Yan Bugui exclaimed. "What devil body? What did you say? What did you do to the star chasing?" "Palace Master Yan, don't be impatient." Man who comforted kindly, "It's not that we want to hide it from you, but young Palace Master asked us to do this. He said that he doesn't want you to worry. Now that the devil body has been formed, young Palace Master's future cultivation speed will increase by leaps and bounds. He will have great achievements in the cultivation world." Yen Bugui was after all not a 3-year-old child. After knowing that his son was fine, he quickly calmed down. However, he still had a gloomy expression on his face, as his gaze swept over the 7 of them. He said in a deep voice, "You'd better not hide anything from me. If you dare to plot against us father and son, we'll just perish together. No one will have an easy time. Palace Master Yen is worrying too much. You and I have sworn an oath. We will help you unify China's cultivation world. And after we succeed, you will use the entire China's power to help us find the star bead. After that, we will have nothing to do with each other. How can we plot against each other?" Man Who patted Yen Bugui's shoulder and said, "Palace Master Yen, let's go out and talk. I will tell you everything in detail." Yen Bugui waved his sleeve and left angrily, leaving the 7 people looking at each other in dismay. These 7 people were originally 7 martial brothers. They were all disciples of the same master, Man Who was their martial brother, and also the Dirong Empire's imperial teacher. Eldest martial brother, he is just a stray dog. If we did not save him, he would have lost his life. He is only a crossing tribulation middle stage cultivator. Yet he dares to vent his anger on us crossing tribulation late stage cultivators. He must be tired of living. I don't understand. Why do we have to rely on him? Could it be that our country's cultivation world combined can't defeat China's cultivation world? The 7th martial brother, who was ranked last, transmitted his voice. Man Who glared at him and transmitted his voice back. China's cultivation world is deeply rooted in xenophobia. Even if we join forces and conquer it, we will face long-term troubles. We will not be able to organize an effective force to find the star bead. This Yen father and son, especially that Yen Juexing, are the #1 sects in both the righteous and demonic Tao. They also have some power in their hands. They are good targets for us to use. In the future, don't talk nonsense like this." Man Who finished speaking and turned to leave. The 6 looked at each other and silently followed. In the main hall, Yen Bugui had already dismissed everyone and stood with his hands behind his back. Man Who came out from behind and immediately laughed. "Palace Lord Yen is still angry?" Yen Bugui turned around and said in a deep voice, "Man Who, what is going on?" Man Who slightly smiled and directly asked, "Palace Lord Yen, have you heard of the demonic Tao?" Yen Bugui coldly snorted. "This old man comes from the #1 sect of the demonic Tao, 10,000 demons. How can I not know the principles of the demonic Tao?" No, Palace Lord Yen misunderstood. I am talking about the ancient demonic Tao, which is even more ancient than the ancient era. It is not the current demonic Tao of the cultivation world. Man Who said with a smile, "Ancient? That is at least a few 100,000 years ago. How can this old man know about such a distant matter?" Yen Bugui changed the topic and said unhappily, "Man Who, don't try to change the topic. I'm asking about my son Yen Juexing. What happened?" Man Who didn't get angry, he laughed and said, "Palace Master Yen is usually a very calm person. How come today?" Okay, long story short, if you want to explain the matter of young Palace Master clearly, you have to start from the ancient demonic path. Yen Bugui asked, "Could it be that what you did to him is related to the ancient demonic Tao?" Man Who nodded and looked outside the main hall and said, "It is said that in the ancient era, there was not only the immortal world and underworld, there was also a world called the demon world. It's said that the demon world is a place that even the immortal and netherworld fear. However, someone sealed the passage to the demon world, so the ancient demon path faded out of people's sight. Until now, very few people know about it. There is such a thing. This old man comes from the demonic Tao. How can I not know about this?" Yen Bugui was surprised. Man Who laughed and said, "The difference between Palace Lord Yan's devil Tao and righteous Tao is that the devil Tao is different. The ancient devil Tao is the true great Tao. Compared to the current devil Tao, it's like a grain of rice trying to compete with the bright moon. It's not worth mentioning, really not worth mentioning." "Then how do you know about it?" Yen Bugui asked doubtfully. Man Who proudly said, 200 years ago, I became the state preceptor of the Dirong Empire. I happened to find a set of rare animal skin ancient books in the collection of ancient books in the inner palace. But because the characters on it were too old, no one could recognize it. So it was left unused. Coincidentally, my master is an expert in ancient texts. I have been cultivating with my master for many years and have dabbled in it. So I recognized the origin of this book. What origin? Yen Bugui couldn't help but ask. Devil book. Man whose expression was solemn as he slowly said. It simply introduces some matters of the ancient demonic Tao. In fact, it is a set of devil arts. Chapter 370. Great Devil Arts. Yen Bugui savored these words and suddenly felt uneasy. The sudden palpitation in his heart was hard to describe. It was as if one was trapped in a swamp, oppressed to the point of being unable to breathe. Both of them seemed to have the same feeling. After looking at each other for a long time, Manhu continued. According to the records of the demonic book, once a devil art is completed, even in the immortal and netherworld, there would be few opponents, not to mention the cultivation world experts. Is it really so powerful? Yen Bugui cried out in shock. I won't hide it from Palace Lord Yen. This is only one side of the story in the demonic book. No one knows the truth. Manhu said with a serious expression. But the cultivation method recorded in the book is beyond our knowledge. Even a spirit-severing expert like my master found it unimaginable. After my master personally translated the demonic book, he ordered me and my fellow apprentices to find people with extraordinary physiques to experiment on. But what was regrettable was that after experimenting with over 1,000 people, not a single one was able to successfully build their body. What? Yen Bugui's expression twitched as he said sternly. Manhu, how dare you use my son for such a vicious experiment? Palace Lord Yen, please calm down. Manhu consoled. It was not me who used the young palace lord as an experiment, but the young palace lord himself requested it. One day, the young palace lord asked me what was the strongest cultivation method in the world. I said that I didn't know which magic art was the strongest, but I knew that there was a very strong magic art. It was the strongest magic art that I knew of. The young palace lord immediately asked me, so I told him about the demonic book. In fact, I only said it casually, but who knew that the young palace lord would take it seriously and pester me every day? I was forced to lend him the demonic book, and the result was beyond my expectations. After the young palace lord read it, he resolutely decided to serve the devil and cultivate the demonic book. This was too dangerous, so I asked him to discuss it with you first. But not only did the young palace lord not allow us to tell you, he even asked us to help him conceal it. Unfilial son, unfilial son. After Yen Bugui roared, he stared at Manhu with bloodshot eyes. Didn't you tell him that there was no successful cultivation method before? If you want to practice demonic arts, you must first build a demonic body. Manhu sighed and said, I naturally told young palace master about the previous failures, but young palace master's strong determination is simply unimaginable. We had no choice but to lie to you with the excuse of using a secret technique to increase our cultivation. Fortunately, the young palace master's mind is incomparably strong, and he actually managed to resist the 7-star blood-stabbing art, which is an unbearable torture for ordinary people, and brazenly established his devil body. Even I am surprised. Unfilial son, unfilial son. Yen Bugui kept murmuring like an injured tiger, breathing heavily. It could be seen how important Yen Juexing was to him. Barbarian tiger, and the others exchanged glances, and were about to leave quietly to give him some time to calm down. Yen Bugui asked, what about the 7 late-stage nascent soul cultivators under my command? They went in with you. Why didn't they come out? The 7 of them looked at each other in dismay. Manhu awkwardly said, Those people. I won't hide it from Palace Master Yen. The reason why the young Palace Master was able to establish his devil body is because of their nascent souls and blood essence. What? Yen Bugui suddenly looked up and said, You mean they are already dead? Manhu silently nodded and said, They have already sacrificed themselves for the young Palace Master. Who would be willing to give up their lives? Yen Bugue was not a fool. With his son's cultivation, it was impossible to force any of the 7 to sacrifice themselves. It must have been done by the 7 late-stage transcending tribulation cultivators. But what could he say? Ding lang ding lang. At this moment, the sound of chains being dragged came from the back of the hall, causing them to turn their heads. Shortly after, a person covered in blood and tattered clothes came out. His limbs and waist were dragging thick chains. When the person saw the people in the hall, he stopped and looked at them. His blood-red eyes caused them to tremble. If this person was not Yen Juexing, who else could it be? But with such an appearance, no one dared to recognize him. A handsome and elegant man had actually become like this. It was really hard to believe. The atmosphere in the main hall suddenly became strange. Man Hu and his fellow disciples all had a grave expression on their faces. After Yen Juexing's devil body was formed, they had used several thick black iron chains to lock him up. They were afraid that he would run out and cause trouble, while his divine sense was not awake. Who knew that he would actually break the chains? How could he do that with his current cultivation? Xinger, how are you? Yen Bugue regained his composure and was about to walk over to investigate, but Man Hu and the other 6 blocked his path and said, Palace Lord Yen, be careful. Young Palace Lord is still in a daze, unable to differentiate between friend and foe. Let him go. Yen Juexing raised his hand that was dragging the chains and pointed at the people blocking Yen Bugue. But the voice was a bit strange, cruel and emotionless. It was a bit scary. But he clearly still had an impression of Yen Bugue. He still recognizes me. He still recognizes me. Yen Bugue was a little excited as he separated the few people and ran towards them. Man Hu and the others looked at each other. But just as Yen Bugue approached, Yen Juexing suddenly fell to the ground. Yen Bugue screamed and helped his son up from the ground. The sword-drawing event came as scheduled. Hat Island had never been so lively before. More than half of the experts in the Chinese cultivation world had gathered. Even if they were not experts, there were still many who came to watch the show. Most of them came with huge amounts of money. The prices of various industries on Hat Island soared, and all the shops could be said to have made a lot of money. Wu clan spent a few days on Hat Island to flatten a small hill to be used as the venue for the sword-drawing event. The other 3 clans also urgently recruited many people to help. A brand new square was brazenly presented, and around the square were built sheds for resting. Of course, because there were too many people, it was impossible for everyone to have a place. Those who could have a place to rest in the sheds were those who were ranked at the top of their sex, or some famous experts in the cultivation world. The 4 great clans were so willing to help Yu Qianqiu, and it immediately made the cultivation world have a new understanding of the relationship between Yu Qianqiu and the 4 great clans. Festive. At this time, this newly built square could only be described as festive. It was crowded with people, the sound of firecrackers crackling everywhere, and red silk cloth was hanging everywhere. The 4 great clans were sweating profusely. They did not know what Yu Qianqiu was thinking. He insisted on sending people to the secular world to purchase a large number of firecrackers and red cloth, saying that it was an auspicious opening, and that it was an auspicious opening. When did the cultivation world play this trick? It was too vulgar. The most terrible thing was that Yu Qianqiu also asked the people from the 4 great clans to come out to show their faces. Everyone had a big red cloth hanging diagonally, and a big red flower pinned on their chest. In fact, Yu Qianqiu originally wanted to invite some people to perform dragon and lion dances. However, this was not popular in this world, and he could not find anyone who understood this industry. Thus he could only give up on this idea. For a moment, the people from the 4 great clans could be said to be exceptionally conspicuous, attracting everyone's attention. This made the group of old fellows so embarrassed that they really wanted to hide in the sheds and not come out. However, there were many people with high statuses in the cultivation world, so they had to come out to greet them. They could only force a smile and come out to welcome the guests. Although this was unconventional, it had to be said that the atmosphere was really different. It was really festive, and there was less of the oppressive atmosphere of competition. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was wearing a red ribbon with a big red flower pinned on his chest. He wandered around the square, warmly cupping his hands in front of his face, and beaming with joy when he saw people. Whether they knew each other or not, he could not stop smiling. Chapter 371. This sect should be able to fork out 100 million. This sect should not be too poor. Corpse sect, a big sect, rich. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the others pointing at him. He happily wandered around. In truth, he was looking around to see what kind of people had come. He had caused such a huge commotion, and he was already prepared to rake in 2 billion high-grade spirit stones. Looking around, he slowly felt that 2 billion spirit stones wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, he laughed even more happily. Even if he saw a disciple from a small sect, he would be the first to greet him with a warm good. All the disciples who met him were flattered and praised him in their hearts. No wonder he could make such a big name in the cultivation world. He was amiable and didn't put on any airs. Just this point alone showed that ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to him. It seemed that the words of scum and madman were just rumors. Rumors did a lot of harm, so they couldn't be easily believed. Therefore, many disciples from various sects secretly made up their minds to treat Yu Qianqiu's way of dealing with people as a role model in the future. Wu Sihai's gaze always followed Yu Qianqiu, who was wandering around. To be honest, Wu Sihai was really afraid of this guy. Experience told him that wherever this guy went, there would be trouble. This rule was almost 100% proven. Wu Sihai looked around. He had a faint premonition that something bad would happen at the saber drawing conference. That guy was a jinx. Brother Yu. Laughter came. Yu Qianqiu looked back and saw that it was Qiu Wuyuan. He also smiled and cupped his hands. Senior Qiu. Brother, you are too polite. Qiu Wuyuan laughed. I have never seen someone as generous as you in the cultivation world. You are actually willing to take out the 2 treasures in your hands to choose a master. Rare. Why does this sound a little weird? Are you doubting my sincerity? Yu Qianqiu felt disgusted in his heart, but on the surface, he was still polite and modest. You flatter me. Qiu Wuyuan smiled and stroked his beard. He looked around sneakily and suddenly said, Brother, you don't have to hide it from me. Is there any trick to getting these 2 treasures? Otherwise, how could Luo Qingtian's cultivation be weaker than yours? To be honest, I like these 2 treasures very much. If you are lacking in spirit stones, why don't you tell me? I will make the decision. The 10,000 demons will give you 200 million high-grade spirit stones. F***CK. You want to exchange 200 million for my 2 billion, and you still want to take it away? Yu Qianqiu's expression instantly turned serious, and he solemnly said, Senior Qiu, I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been upright and above board. Besides, I'm not doing this for money. Senior, please help yourself. I will go and see how the preparations are going. He didn't want to be entangled with him, so he turned around and left. Qiu Wuyuan was stunned, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It would be strange if you're not doing this for money. Do you really think everyone in the world is a fool? Everyone knows that you are relying on the sharpness of the treasures to get spirit stones empty-handed. How dare you say that you're not doing this for money? Sigh. It seems that the price is too low, and this kid doesn't want it. Yu Qianqiu, who was in a bad mood, walked to the temporary stage and asked Wu Sihai, Can we start? Let's wait for a while. Wu Sihai gestured to the empty tent on the left. Yu Qianqiu looked at the 10,000 demons on the right, and then looked at the empty seat on the left. Needless to say, who else could it be other than the Fuxian Island? He sighed and didn't know what to say. The so-called number 1 sect in the world, the Fuxian Island, should be more impressive. Their appearance was always the finale. While they were waiting, a group of people from supporting Immortal Island arrived. The one leading them was actually the Cultivation Pavilion's Sihai. Behind him were more than a dozen top-notch experts from the Cultivation Pavilion, including Dongfang Changao. Most of these people knew Yu Qianqiu. When they saw Yu Qianqiu on the stage, they were all stunned. Sihai shook his head and sighed. He led the group of people to their seats. Everyone quieted down. They knew that once the people from the Fuxian Island arrived, it would start. They all looked at the stage. You can start, Wu Sihai said to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Wu Sihai faced the crowd and said in a clear voice, "Everyone, there is no need to explain the rules of the saber drawing assembly. I believe that everyone has seen the notice posted outside. Those who are willing to participate, please come up and pay the spirit stones. There will be 2 people in a group." Ziyi and Wu Lixue, who were wearing red ribbons and big red flowers, walked out from the backstage. Yu Qianqiu had asked the 2 of them to be in charge of collecting the spirit stones. When the 2 beauties appeared on the stage, they attracted a lot of attention. However, most of the people in the tent were looking around. No sect or person came out first. The small sects were too embarrassed to come out first. They were afraid of offending the big sections. The big sects, on the other hand, put on airs. This was probably the demeanor of the big sects. After waiting for a long time, everyone was still looking at each other. No one came out. They had already come. So what was the point of putting on airs? It was simply a waste of time. 1 minute was 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and jumped off the stage. As he walked, he pulled out a big black machete from his storage bag. His movements were neat and tidy. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on the 2 machetes. The calm atmosphere in the field was suddenly broken. Everyone was a little eager to try. In the center of the field were 2 black circles, with a diameter of 2 meters. There was a distance of 3 meters between them. They were 2 black iron discs buried deep in the ground. Before Yu Qianqiu reached the center, the 2 machetes in his hands were thrown into the air. The 2 machetes fell from the air and stabbed into the center of the discs. The 2 machetes were about 2/3 of the way into the discs. Just the sharpness of the machetes, which cut through the black iron like tofu, made everyone gasp in surprise. No wonder even the sword of the Daluo sect master was cut in half. Just the sharpness alone is not something ordinary magic weapons can compare to. Someone discussed. The Daluo sect was not absent among the sections. When they heard this, their expressions changed. Yu Qianqiu walked to the center of the 2 machetes, looked around, and said in a clear voice, "These 2 treasured machetes are here. If no one comes to participate in 2 hours, then I, Yu Qianqiu, will personally pull out these 2 machetes and end this conference. The rules of the saber drawing conference do not stipulate that I cannot personally participate. However, after this, no one should say that I, Yu Qianqiu, did not keep his promise." These words were spoken with a resoluteness that left no room for doubt. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked back to the stage with a gloomy face under everyone's gaze. From beginning to end, there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. Wu Sihai looked at the returning Yu Qianqiu with a look of approval. Then, he looked at his granddaughter, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This time, the crowd could not sit still. Almost all the people in front of the tents from the sects stood up with storage bags in their hands. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Let me 10,000 demons take the lead." A figure flashed out. It was Qiu Wuyuan. However, almost as soon as he appeared, his old rival, Dongfang Chang'eo, flashed out and stood beside him. He said proudly, "Since Brother Qiu is personally going, how can I, Dongfang Chang'eo, not accompany you? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."